Chapter 79. Open up the Sea of Qi. The moment this thought appeared in Tianyang's mind, a strange power filled Tianyang's dantian. True yuan condensed in the spiral meridians, and Tianyang immediately tensed up. Tianyang had opened up the Sea of Qi in his previous life. At that time, he didn't know much about cultivation, so he had only opened up a Sea of Qi of 810 feet. For ordinary geniuses, 810 feet was a terrifying scale that they could only dream of. However, for the Tianji Sword Emperor, this wasn't enough. A cyclone suddenly rose from the center of Tianyang's dantian. With the infusion of true yuan, it grew rapidly. In just a breath, the cyclone scale had already reached 10 feet. In the next second, it had leaped to 30 feet, 10 feet per second. If others knew about this terrifying speed, they would definitely be shocked. Tianyang's brows were still slightly furrowed. He didn't dare relax in the slightest. After all, the importance of the Sea of Qi to future cultivation far surpassed that of Qi in blood. Qi in blood represented the strength of the body. For Tianyang, who had cultivated the 9 refined dragon body, even if his Qi in blood weren't very strong at the beginning, they would be able to make up for it later. However, if the Sea of Qi was insufficient, it would be as difficult as ascending to heaven to make up for it in the future. In his previous life, Tianyang had cultivated to the pinnacle of the continent and possessed the terrifying cultivation of the peak of the heavenly ascension realm. However, that had only made up for it by a little. Now that he had been reborn, Tianyang had to do everything to the best of his ability. "Open for me," Tianyang shouted in a low voice, and a violent force erupted from the cyclone. The cyclone's expansion speed also became faster and faster. 10 feet per second, 11 feet per second, 12 feet per second. Under this terrifying expansion speed, Tianyang cyclone reached 50 feet in just 4 seconds. It should be known that a Sea of Qi of 500 feet was considered quite a genius even in the 3,000 regions of the continent, except for the core regions. Those geniuses would have to exert all their strength to expand such a Sea of Qi. However, Tianyang had reached it in just 4 seconds. After breaking through the 50 feet Sea of Qi, Tianyang slowed down the speed of the infusion of true yuan. 500 feet was a piece of cake for him. However, 500 feet was a threshold. It defined the threshold between a genius and an ordinary person. The real challenge was only after 500 feet. Moreover, to stabilize it, Tianyang had to slow down. Even so, the speed at which Tianyang opened up his Qi Sea was still enough to shock the world. 1 minute, 981 zhang. Very good. It has reached the level of my previous life. After a minute, even the Sky Extreme Sword Emperor, Tianyang, couldn't help but reveal a trace of a smile. At this moment, his Sea of Qi had already reached the level of his previous life. However, in his previous life, he had already tried his best. Now, he still had energy to spare. It was very easy. "Open the rest for me." After adjusting his spirit, Tianyang's face immediately darkened. Then he shouted in a low voice. His true yuan surged again. The Sea of Qi, which had been opened to 81 feet, also began to fluctuate. Inch by inch, foot by foot, it began to expand. In another minute, Tianyang had also increased from 81 feet to 89 feet. In my previous life, the Ice Emperor, who was known as the pride of the generation, only had a Sea of Qi of 89 feet. The previous strongest person on the continent, the primordial Emperor Shirsu, only had a Sea of Qi of 92 feet. Tianyang said in a low voice. At this moment, he was also feeling a little strained. "But I can definitely surpass them." The final sprint. Tianyang shouted angrily. The true yuan in his body surged endlessly. Then his Sea of Qi expanded again. 900 feet breakthrough. After breaking through 900 feet, the expansion speed of Tianyang's Sea of Qi slowed down a lot. It was as if he'd stepped into a swamp. The speed immediately decreased sharply. Tianyang was not surprised at all. If it was still as fast as before, he would be a little surprised. After all, 900 feet of Sea of Qi was already an extremely high level. It was only 9 feet away from the legendary strongest sea of Chi of 99 feet. The last 9 feet, among the strongest people on the continent, had a special name to describe it. 9 feet of hell. The primordial emperor Su was not like Tianyong, who rose from the grassroots. Instead, he was born in the aristocratic family of the continent. From the very beginning, he had ample conditions to cultivate. However, even so, he had only conquered 2 feet of the 90 feet of hell. The significance of each foot was no less than the previous 10 feet. It could be said that each foot was a heaven. I have been reborn. Since I have broken through the true perfection of the body-refining realm and the supreme realm, how difficult is this 9 feet of hell? No matter how strong the obstacle is, it can only be trampled under my feet. Tianyong roared in his heart. In the next moment, a powerful force directly broke through the restraint. 901 feet. After breaking through 901 feet, Tianyong did not reduce the force at all. He continued to rush upwards as if he was sprinting for the last 100 meters. Every moment, he crossed an incomparably huge distance. 92, 93, 94. Opening up the Sea of Chi didn't require a long time. Generally speaking, it would take at most 2 to 4 hours. When the primordial emperor Su broke through 902 feet, it only took 6 hours. The last 2 feet took half of the time. When the Ice Emperor was sprinting towards the end, the time he used was even shorter. All in all, it was only 1.5 hours. However, Tianyong only used a quarter of an hour to break the record set by the previous strongest person on the continent, the primordial emperor Su, under his feet. Just a quarter of an hour. Boom! As if there was a terrifying explosion in the Sea of Chi. Under the loud noise that shook the heavens and the earth, he broke through 950 feet. Blue veins popped out on Tianyong's face. His face was flushed red, and his heart seemed to be about to burst out of his chest. The last few feet were as difficult as ascending to the heavens. I don't believe that I, the Tianji Sword Emperor, can lose to an ancient person. Tianyong gritted his teeth and roared into the sky. A terrifying pressure bloomed from his body. The heavens and the earth shook, and the wind and clouds changed color. Tens of millions of miles away, in a deep mountain in the central region of the continent, an old man's expression suddenly changed. This terrifying pressure, I don't know where it came from. Could it be that there's someone stronger than me in this world? In another mountain forest, a handsome middle-aged man instantly felt the terrifying emperor's pressure. His legs trembled, and he almost knelt down. He opened his mouth but could only spit out one word. However, in the soaring cloud sects intersect in the north of the continent. In Tianyong's body, the Sea of Chi had reached the legendary peak. 999 feet. It seems that I can go further? Tianyong opened his eyes and muttered to himself. Then, a smile appeared on his face. Chapter 80. Then, let's go one step further. Tianyong murmured, the corners of his mouth turning up slightly. In the next moment, the vital essence that had been condensed to the extreme burst out once again. The Origin Emperor Su said that it was 92 zhong, but in fact, it wasn't exactly perfect. It was 92 zhong 3 feet and 2 inches. The Ice Emperor was a little more tragic, 89 zhong 9 feet and 9 inches. And Tianyong was now exactly 99 zhong. He was only 10 zhong away from the limit of 100 zhong. He had successfully reached 99 zhong 1 inch. Tianyong opened his eyes. Rays of light flashed through them. The powerful soul strength of the peak of the heavenly ascension state allowed him to not lose his best state no matter what the situation was. Therefore, although it only took him a little more than 15 minutes to reach this 99 zhong Chi Sea, it had already stabilized to the extreme. 99 zhong 3 inches, 99 zhong 1 foot, 99 zhong 2 feet. His Sea of Chi was expanding at a snail's pace. Even so, Heavenly Sun was still taking his time. He was about to break through to perfection and reach 500 feet of vitality. It was the same, slow but steady. Another 15 minutes passed. Tianyang's expression also changed slightly. At this moment, his qi had already reached 99 zhang 9 feet and 9 inches. He was only one step away from the true limit of 100 zhang. However, this last inch was like a natural moat, almost impossible to cross. His expression darkened slightly. This feeling was as if he was breaking through to 150 zhang. However, the curve of his mouth widened slightly. Tianyang's expression suddenly darkened, as if he had discovered something. His eyes flashed with an intimidating light. Then, he raised his head to the sky and roared. Roar! The soul of the peak of the heavenly ascension state surged wildly. The entire qi was trembling as if it was about to shatter. In the next moment, there was a roar. The 99 zhang 9 feet and 9 inches of qi that countless people attached great importance to and were afraid of damaging in the slightest was shattered with a loud bang. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression was still calm and composed. At this moment, his aura had already dropped to the lowest point. It could be said that with his qi shattered, he was a cripple. However, Tianyang understood that this shattering was nothing at all. Natural moat, unbreakable. What a joke. This is the method to break through the natural chasm. Tianyang laughed out loud. Afterwards, his true yuan madly condensed. The scattered fragments of his qi slowly gathered together under the effect of his soul power at the peak of the reaching heaven state. Tianyang's true yuan was also rapidly recovering. In the end, he was even stronger than his previous peak state. Construction after destruction, construction after destruction. Only after it shatters will it be a 100 zhang ultimate qi. Tianyang laughed loudly, and the fragments of his qi suddenly burst out with terrifying light. In the next moment, Tianyang's quintessential essence crazily revolved, and the fragments of his qi were enveloped by his own radiance. A 5-colored xinguang erupted from Tianyang's body. Within his dantian, the dragon qi within the dragon pearl was quickly devoured and absorbed by Tianyang. In the next moment, xinguang suddenly erupted to the extreme. This is impossible. How could an emperor be born in the current world? In the central region of the continent, the previously shocked old man was now in an even more terrifying state of shock. He couldn't see anything with his naked eye, but he could sense it. The entire continent was enveloped by the 5-colored xinguang. As time passed, the 5-colored xinguang continued to increase rapidly. In the end, it reached the 9-colored xinguang. The 9-colored xinguang enveloped the entire continent. If this wasn't a monarch, then what else could it be? Even though the handsome middle-aged man had erupted with an aura that could cause a region to tremble, he still couldn't withstand the terrifying emperor aura and xinguang. He knelt down. Outside the Lingyun sect, countless inner sect disciples were trembling. They couldn't see anything, but their hearts were still trembling. They were trembling because of the birth of an ultimate qi. Now, Tianyang shouted softly. Finally, the fragments of his qi were completely enveloped by the 9-colored xinguang. Based on the heavenly sun's senses, he could clearly see that the qi was no longer as large as it had been before. Instead, it was extreme 100 zhang qi. The moment the 100 zhang qi was formed, Tianyang's aura instantly soared. Ordinary people needed to cultivate for a period of time after opening their qi to stabilize their cultivation. However, Tianyang didn't need that long. Clear Qi Realm Level 1. Peak. Tianyang's cultivation had reached the peak of Clear Qi Realm Level 1. He was only a step away from Clear Qi Realm Level 2. If Wu Meng were to challenge Tianyang again, he wouldn't even need to use the chiming fist. Tianyang would only need to lightly punch him. Wu Meng would only be killed in an instant. Tianyang's Lingyun sect intersect robe fluttered in the wind. Then, everything quieted down. The 9-colored xinguang also gradually dissipated. Tianyang stood up and clenched his fists. Feeling the abundant power in his body, he couldn't help but nod his head in satisfaction. As expected of the 100 zhang qi. At this moment, I can easily kill Wu Meng with a single punch. I don't even need to use any martial techniques. If I use the chiming fist, I can even defeat the 10th inner sect disciple, who is at clear chi realm level 3. If I use any trump card other than the soul energy of the peak of heaven ascension realm, I'm afraid that I can even defeat the number 1 inner sect disciple, Yi Zhanling. Tianyang chuckled. With the cultivation of clear chi realm level 1, he dared to say that he could defeat Yi Zhanling, who was at least at clear chi realm level 5. The gap between clear chi realm level 1 and clear chi realm level 5 was huge. Only Tianyang dared to say this. Master, you broke through? Just as Tianyang withdrew his aura, Ling Yuhan, who was waiting quietly in the room next door, excitedly opened the door to Tianyang's room. Looking at the smiling Tianyang, Ling Yuhan suddenly felt a tremor in her heart. She was still in the process of familiarizing herself with the Ice Emperor's heavenly sword technique. In a short period of time, she could not break through to the clear chi realm. However, with her strength, she could already defeat an ordinary clear chi realm level 1. However, in front of Tianyang, Ling Yuhan felt as if she was facing a legendary almighty. It was as if Tianyang only needed to raise his hand to defeat her, even if she broke through to the clear chi realm. So handsome. Ling Yuhan did not know that the little deer in her heart was about to faint. She muttered to herself and took a step back with a red face. Tianyang chuckled as he looked at Ling Yuhan and walked out. I didn't expect that in just a few days, guests would come to my place one after another. After saying this, Tianyang smiled slightly. Then, in a flash, he went downstairs to the courtyard. Ling Yuhan did not know what was going on, but she followed him. At this time, Wu Ming, who had just been defeated by Tianyang, came to Tianyang's door with a ferocious face. Tianyang, get out here. Why are you here? Chapter 81. Why are you here? Looking at Tianyang's smiling face, Wu Ming looked as if he had seen a ghost and stared at him in shock. Not only Tianyang, but behind him, Ling Yuhan looked at Wu Ming with an unfriendly expression. Even though Wu Ming had already lost to Tianyang, Ling Yuhan would not give Wu Ming any face. Wu Ming could not help but take a few steps back. His heart was in turmoil. One had to know that he had come on the orders of someone. He did not let anyone know about it. However, Tianyang seemed to have been prepared. Before he arrived, he had already been waiting at the door. What kind of powerful sensing ability was this? How is this possible? It must be a coincidence. Wu Ming shook his head hard, and his face became ferocious again. Isn't this Wu Ming ranked 50th? Why? Did you feel that you did not lose badly enough and came to fight me again? Tianyang laughed lightly. His eyes shone faintly. He had just broken through to stage 1 of the illuminating Qi realm and had not yet tested his strength. However, this Wu Ming was clearly not enough to be a test of his strength. At the very least, he had to be in the top 10 of the inner disciples. I'm not here to fight with you again. I'm here on the orders of senior brother to invite you over. Wu Ming said coldly. He was extremely fearful of fighting Tianyang. Earlier, Tianyang had clearly not used his full strength, yet he had been able to easily defeat him. Now, although Tianyang could not tell anything from his aura, it was obvious that his strength had increased compared to before. If he fought with Tianyang again, Wu Ming would not even have the chance to struggle. He would be killed instantly. Invite me over? Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows slightly. The corners of his mouth curled into a subtle smile. I wonder who the senior you were talking about is. Tianyang laughed lightly. Hearing this, Wu Ming's face showed a trace of pride. My senior is not just anyone. He is Senior Chen Shan, ranked 13th on the stone wall. Chen Shan. Upon hearing this name, Ling Yuhan's pupil shrank. Although she had not been in the inner sect for long, she had heard of some of the powerful inner sect disciples when she was still in the outer sect. Chen Shan was one of them. Although he was ranked 13th, he was definitely not an ordinary 13th. It was said that with Chen Shan's strength, he was completely capable of charging into the top 10. However, for some unknown reason, he did not challenge anyone in the top 10. However, this was not a reason to underestimate him. Behind Wu Ming was Chen Shan. Ling Yuhan's expression tensed up a little, and the blue sea sword in her spatial bag began to stir. Chen Shan, was a true intersect powerhouse. So it's Qinshan. Tianyang nodded, as if he had suddenly realized something. Hearing this, Wu Meng's face also revealed a trace of a cold smile. This Tianyang was indeed afraid after hearing senior brother Qinshan's name. Well, even if this Tianyang had some strength, he could only die if he met senior brother Qinshan. Sorry, I don't know him. Tianyang's light laughter was heard. In the next moment, a violent and huge force condensed in Tianyang's fist and landed on Wu Meng's chest. A mouthful of blood spurted out from Wu Meng's mouth. Wu Meng's face instantly turned extremely pale. On the other hand, Tianyang looked at Wu Meng's face with a trace of mockery. Do you really think I'm blind? The aura of that middle-grade treasure weapon on your back is concealed quite well. However, it's just not bad. You need a middle-grade treasure weapon to invite a person? What a joke. This Qinshan is probably trying to kill me. Tianyang laughed lightly. Hearing this, Wu Meng's face instantly changed. Tianyang had actually discovered Qinshan's plan. So what if I've been discovered? If senior brother Qinshan wants you dead, you have no choice but to die. Wu Meng roared angrily. The middle-grade treasure weapon on his back was instantly unsheathed. It was a long sword. Seeing this, Tianyang's eyes slightly narrowed. Before the middle-grade treasure weapon was unsheathed, he immediately executed the dragon subduing steps. In a flash, his body appeared in front of Wu Meng. What? Seeing a large black shadow suddenly appear in front of him, Wu Meng's face changed greatly. However, at this moment, Tianyang did not hesitate and directly threw out a punch. Bang! This punch did not have the slightest bit of mercy. Even if Wu Meng had some defense, in front of Tianyang, who had already reached stage 1 of the Bright Qi realm and had opened up the extreme Qi Sea, Wu Meng was like a piece of paper in front of him. If it were not for the soaring cloud sect's rule of not allowing private killing in the intersect, Tianyang's punch would have been enough to kill Wu Meng 1,000 times over. In the next moment, the middle-grade treasure sword fell into Tianyang's hands. With a slight movement of his soul power, the imprint on the sword was directly erased and branded with Tianyang's own soul imprint. The fine steel sword has not been used for long, and someone has already delivered a middle-grade treasure weapon to me. Your senior brother Qinshan is really a good person. Tianyang's lips curled into a smile as he lightly laughed. Hearing this, Wu Meng, who had already been severely injured by Tianyang's 2 attacks, suddenly widened his eyes and spat out a mouthful of blood. He was so angry that he directly fainted. Perhaps even Qinshan himself did not expect that the middle-grade treasure weapon that he had given to Wu Meng, intending to let him injure or kill Tianyang, will be snatched away by Tianyang. Yuhan, I won't use your sword in the future. Tianyang lightly laughed. Now, the imprint and aura that had been imprinted on the middle-grade treasure sword had been completely destroyed by Tianyang's tyrannical soul power. It could be said that in a few short seconds, Tianyang had completed a process that would take an ordinary person several minutes to complete. He had directly turned the middle-grade treasure weapon into his own. If Qinshan knew about this kind of godly speed, he would probably vomit blood in anger. Seeing Tianyang's series of actions in a flash, Ling Yuhan was also quite shocked. Just 2 punches, both of which were unexpected. Punching, repelling, seeing through, and seizing the sword. The entire process was as smooth as flowing water, as if mercury was flowing on the ground. It was clean and efficient, without the slightest bit of wasted energy. Perhaps even the elders of the Soaring Cloud sect would not be able to achieve this kind of martial realm. There's even a name carved on it? That's not bad. My naming skills are not that good. Looking at the middle-grade treasure weapon that he had just obtained, Tianyang lightly laughed and saw 2 small words carved on the back of the sword. This sword was called the Wind Flame sword. Wind Flame, not a bad name. It should be able to withstand my attacks. Tianyang laughed, then turned his head and glanced at Ling Yuhan. Master, looking at Tianyang's eyes, Ling Yuhan asked curiously. Let's go. Tianyang slightly smiled, but in this smile, there was a chilling coldness. Courtesy demands reciprocity. This Qinshan can't always send people to visit us. Chapter 82. Tianyang did not know where Chun Shan's residence was located. However, as the 13th ranked disciple of the inner sect, many people would know where he lived. After asking a random inner sect disciple, Tianyang and Ling Tianyang found out where Chun Shan lived. Without hesitation, they headed straight for Chun Shan's residence. After reaching the peak of the first level of the Bright Chi realm, my speed is much faster than before. Tianyang could not help but sigh as he flew through the air. When he was at the peak of the 9th level of the body refinement realm, even if he used the Earth-level dragon's subduing steps, he could only travel a few dozen meters per second. However, now that he had broken through to the first level of the Bright Chi realm and opened up an ultimate sea of Chi, even if he were to fly at a speed of 100 meters per second, he would not feel the slightest strain. It could only be said that the ultimate sea of Chi and Tianyang's body were simply too powerful. Before Tianyang could test out his fastest speed, Chun Shan's residence appeared in front of Tianyang and Ling Tianyang's eyes. There it is. Ling Yuhan's chest heaved up and down. Two new disciples who had been in the inner sect for less than a week were going to challenge the 13th ranked disciple of the inner sect. This kind of situation also caused Ling Yuhan's face to redden and his heart to beat rapidly. This matter was too exciting. As for Tianyang, he did not feel anything strange. After all, he was the Tianji Sword Emperor. In his previous life, he did not even care about ordinary geniuses like Chun Shan. Now, if not for Chun Shan causing trouble for him time and time again, Tianyang would not have bothered with Chun Shan. At this moment, in the courtyard, senior brother Chun Shan, Wu Meng has been gone for so long. Why is he not back yet? In the hall, a young man asked another young man sitting at the head of the table. Judging from the conversation, the young man sitting at the head of the table was the 13th ranked disciple of the inner sect, Chun Shan. Wu Meng is only at the first level of the Bright Chi realm. It is natural for him to be slower. However, this Tianyang has only been here for a few days, yet he dares to defeat Xiao Ping and Wu Meng. This is simply a slap to the face of the senior disciples, a slap to my face. Chun Shan's face turned gloomy as the true yuan of the clear Chi realm surged within his body. Tianyang, a new disciple who had been in the sect for less than 7 days, had actually defeated Xiao Ping and even Wu Meng. Defeating Xiao Ping was one thing, as Xiao Ping had nothing to do with him. However, Wu Meng was Chun Shan's proudest subordinate. Tianyang actually dared to beat him so mercilessly. In addition, this Tianyang actually dared to compete with us for a spot in that opportunity. He deserves to die, Chun Shan sneered. At this moment, a thunderous voice came from outside the door. Chun Shan, get out here! His voice was like thunder, and it was mixed with surging true yuan, causing the entire hall to shake. Hearing this, Chun Shan's expression suddenly turned extremely ugly. As the 13th disciple of the inner sect, he had the ability to enter the top 10. Yet, someone actually dared to ask him to get out? How dare you disrespect senior brother Chun Shan? No matter who you are courting death. The young man who had asked the question looked at Chun Shan. Anger appeared on his face, but in his heart, he was a little happy. There are not many people who dared to provoke Chun Shan. If he could easily take care of the people outside, his position in Chun Shan's heart would definitely rise greatly. If that was the case, he would definitely be valued more than Wu Meng. I'll use the guy outside as a gift to please senior brother Chun Shan. A sinister smile appeared on the young man's face. In a flash, he appeared in front of Tianyang and Ling Yuhan. Two people. Seeing Tianyang and Ling Yuhan, a strange expression appeared on the young man's face. Then, without identifying them, he laughed maniacally. Just two nameless people. How dare you provoke senior brother Chun Shan? Remember, the person who injured you today is the 78th disciple of the inner sect Wang. Where did this guy come from? Noisy. Tianyang frowned and raised his hand to slap the young man. Tianyang's true yuan, which was at the peak of the first level of the clear Chi realm, directly shattered the youth's true yuan shield. Even though he had already stepped into the half-step clear Chi realm, he still could not withstand Tianyang's casual slap. Even a level 1 or 2 enlightened Chi realm cultivator would not be able to do so. Bang! The left side of the young man's face caved in from a slap. The left half of his teeth were shattered into pieces. Blood spurted from his mouth as he was sent flying. Bang! Another sound that was not inferior to the previous slap sounded. Looking at the situation, even if the person who landed was not dead, he would be severely injured. What? Wang Qing was defeated just like that. Sensing the changes outside in 3 seconds, Chun Shan's face darkened. Wang Qing was sent flying by Tianyang's slap. This person is a great enemy. In the next moment, Chun Shan's figure flashed and appeared in front of Tianyang. Who are you? Chun Shan asked. I don't care who you are. Treating my friend like this is too much. His voice was cold. The true energy of the level 3 enlightened Qi realm began to fluctuate. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyelids. You are Chun Shan? Tianyang's voice was emotionless as he looked at the young man who was staring at him. He had shoulder-length black hair, and his face could be considered handsome. He was also wearing the soaring cloud sex intersect robes, and he looked like a talent. There was a sword at his waist. Based on his aura, this person was at the level 3 enlightened Qi realm. Furthermore, this was Chun Shan's residence. This meant that the young man in front of him was Chun Shan. You are the Flaming Wind Sword. How do you have the Flaming Wind Sword? You are Tianyang. Chun Shan's face darkened. Then, he recognized the long sword in Tianyang's hand. This was one of the few middle-grade artifacts that he had collected. It was on the same level as his own Flaming Riverblade. Previously, he had given the Flaming Wind Sword to Wu Ming to deal with Tianyang. How did it appear in the hands of this person in front of him in the blink of an eye? Yes, Tianyang said calmly. Hearing this, Chun Shan's face changed. Tianyang had stolen his Flaming Wind Sword and had come knocking on his door. Good. No wonder you are ranked first in the Inner Disciple Assessment. In less than a week, you have already reached the 36th place on the stone wall, Tianyang. After stealing my middle-grade artifact, you still dare to come knocking on my door. Your courage is admirable, Chun Shan said coldly. The true energy of the level 3 enlightened Qi realm in his body was at its peak. However, since you dare to come here, you must pay a price. Chun Shan snorted and unsheathed the long sword at his waist. Chapter 83. Kill. Chun Shan roared. His clear Qi realm, level 3, true yuan burst forth. The long saber in his hand was ablaze with a strange blue flame. Seeing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. He was a little surprised, but he did not hesitate. True yuan surged within his 1,000 feet Qi sea. Above the wind flame sword, the heavenly sword also attached itself to his body. In an instant, Tianyang entered the perfect state for battle. Clear Qi realm, level 1 peak. Chun Shan could not help but be taken aback when he sensed the tyrannical aura that suddenly erupted from Tianyang's body. One had to know that Tianyang had only been in the body refinement realm before this. However, in less than a day, Tianyang had broken through to the aura illuminating realm. Moreover, he had broken through to the clear Qi realm level 1 peak. This cultivation speed was terrifying. This guy's cultivation speed is really terrifying. However, he is only at the clear Qi realm level 1 peak. I am at the clear Qi realm level 3. The difference of 1 level is enough for me to kill him countless times. Chun Shan laughed coldly in his heart. Then he stomped his feet on the ground. The river fire saber in his hand was ablaze with layers of flames. Tianyang, how dare you invade my residence? This saber will be the price you will pay, Chun Shan shouted. In the next moment, the long saber, burning with blue flames, was swung towards Tianyang. A huge saber chi condensed from blue flaming shuttles also burst out from the river fire saber, rushing straight to the sun. It's actually an upper-grade yellow-class martial skill, dark blue saber technique. Who would have thought that Senior Chun Shan would value this trash, Tianyang, so much? The crowd muttered in shock as they looked at the powerful blue flame saber aura. Seeing this, Tianyang laughed. Upper-grade yellow-class martial skill? Trash like this dares to show off? Flowing cloud sword technique, cloud shadow sword. Tianyang softly spat out a few words as the flaming wind sword in his hand suddenly blossomed with flashes of light. Along with the infusion of Tianyang's quintessence, it directly turned into countless afterimages. Every afterimage had a very strong attack power. In the next moment, they directly collided with the blue fire saber chi. Boom! A huge explosion erupted from the center of the collision between the cloud shadow sword and the blue fire blade chi. A huge shockwave swept out in all directions. Some people were even forced to take a few steps back by the shockwave. However, in the center of the battle, Tianyang and Chun Shan were still motionless. How is that possible? My dark blue saber art is one of the few superior grade yellow rank martial skills that I've mastered. Compared to Wu Meng, he is much stronger. Tianyang actually blocked it. Chun Shan stared in shock at the cloud shadow sword that was clashing with the blue fire blade chi. His heart trembled. Then, a ferocious look flashed across his face. Never would I have thought that this waste young master of the Tian family actually hid such strength, coupled with such a horrifying cultivation speed. This kid cannot be left alive. A murderous look flashed across his eyes. Chun Shan took a step forward and broke through the blue fire blade chi and the cloud shadow sword, arriving in front of Tianyang. True energy gathered on the river fire blade in his hand. In a flash, Chun Shan had already unleashed a shocking attack. Close combat. Seeing Chun Shan suddenly appear in front of him, Tianyang's lips curled into a smile. He had already noticed Chun Shan's movements when he first made his move. In the previous 3 seconds, he had countless ways to force Chun Shan back, or even kill him. The reason why he had Chun Shan come in front of him was to test out Tianyang's strength. Chun Shan had the strength to enter the top 10 of the inner sect. Therefore, he was also in the top 10 of the inner sect. Kill him. Superior grade yellow, rank saber art, river fire blade art. Chun Shan roared. The river fire blade glowed brightly. His clear chi stage 3 true energy was quickly infused into the blade. Then, he slashed towards Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang's lips curled into a smile. Without hesitation, he used his flaming wind blade to meet Chun Shan's attack. He did not use any sword art. He only used his true energy and physical strength. He wondered if his earth dragon body and ultimate sea of chi would be able to kill Chun Shan in a second. Bang! A deafening collision sound was heard again. Under Chun Shan and Tianyang's feet, cracks began to appear. Then, the cracks connected with each other, forming a spiderweb of cracks. Following this, the cracks expanded rapidly, resulting in boom! Chun Shan's house completely collapsed. However, Chun Shan had no time to think about the problem of his house. He hurriedly activated his true energy and retreated. His heart was in turmoil. This heavenly son's fleshly body power was actually so terrifying. In the previous exchange, Chun Shan had realized that Tianyang had not used any martial arts techniques. He had only used his physical strength to fight with him. One must know that he had used a superior grade yellow rank saber art. However, in this exchange, not only did he not gain the upper hand, he was even almost injured by Tianyang. Tianyang's physical strength was enough to completely crush him. However, for some reason, he stopped when he was about to injure him. This kind of person is too strong. If he matures in the future, he will definitely be at least at the essence transformation realm. Chun Shan's chest heaved up and down as he stared at Tianyang, who had a calm expression on his face and gritted his teeth. As the 13th disciple of the inner sect, and a clear chi stage 3 martial artist, he was much stronger than Tianyang. Yet, he was still defeated by Tianyang using pure physical strength. Although no one had noticed this yet, Chun Shan, who understood it himself, felt a burning pain on his face. A new disciple who had just entered the sect could already suppress him. If that was the case, then his 13th disciple was not worthy of his title. In the exchange, just now, senior brother Chun Shan was actually forced to retreat so many steps, at least dozens of steps back, but Tianyang did not even move a single step. Could it be that this Tianyang is even stronger than senior brother Chun Shan? There were many onlookers. After all, this was the residential area of the inner sect. When Tianyang and Chun Shan started fighting, many people noticed the commotion. A young man could not help but exclaim as he looked at the relaxed Tianyang. Don't think too much. No matter how talented Tianyang is, he has only been in the sect for less than a week. How could he possibly defeat Senior Brother Chen Shan? Senior Brother Chen Shan still has that move that he has not used yet. At this moment, another young man spoke in a low voice. On top of the ruins, Chen Shan stared at his destroyed house. His heart was burning with rage. Tianyang, ever since I became the 13th disciple of the inner sect, no one has ever dared to come in my place and slap my face. A furious voice came out from Chen Shan's mouth. Hearing these words, almost everyone could feel the bone-chilling intent in his words, even the killing intent. Similarly, ever since I became the 13th disciple of the inner sect, I have never used this move again. It is your honor to be able to force me to use this move. You can rest in peace when you go to hell. Chen Shan shouted coldly. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyelids. Martial Spirit, Ice Dragon. Half-Step Xian Class Martial Spirit, Ice Dragon. Ice Fire Saber Technique. Low-Grade Xian Class Martial Skill, Ice Fire Saber Technique. Two terrifying existences appeared on Chun Shan's body at the same time. Chun Shan also released an aura that far exceeded that of a clear chi stage cultivator. Chapter 84. Tianyang, go to hell. Chun Shan roared angrily. The river fireblade that was burning with blue flames in his hand was once again covered with half of the frost. Behind him was an ice dragon that exuded an ancient and tyrannical aura. Seeing this, countless people gasped. Senior Brother Chen Shan actually used his martial spirit. His martial spirit is one of the best in the entire inner disciple. The crowd was shocked. A martial spirit that was half a step to the profound class was more than enough to look down on most of the inner sect disciples. After all, in the entire inner sect, there were only a handful of people who had a profound class martial spirit. Chun Shan's martial spirit that was half a step to the profound class was already very impressive. It was said that among the top 10 inner sect disciples on the stone wall, only Yi Zhanling, who was ranked first, had a profound class martial spirit. The others were at most at Chen Shan's level. However, Chun Shan actually used such a powerful martial spirit to deal with a new disciple who had only entered the sect for less than a week and was only at the peak of the first stage of the Bright Chi realm. Thinking of this, many people felt indignant for Tianyang. However, they did not dare to say anything. After all, Chun Shan, who used the Ice Dragon martial spirit, was definitely one of the top 10 inner sect disciples. Not to mention that Chun Shan was currently using a low-grade Xian ranked martial skill, the Ice Fire Saber art. It's half a step to the profound class. Seeing the Ice Dragon's eyes slightly open and emitting a dangerous aura, Tianyang grinned. Half a step to the profound class. This was the strongest martial spirit he had ever seen. Of course, there were martial spirits that were stronger than half a step to the profound class. However, in the inner sect of the Soaring Cloud sect, this level of martial spirit was already considered extremely strong. It's a pity that this ice dragon is only a martial spirit. Even if it's the main body, the dragon blood in its body is very thin. There's no way to suppress it with dragon force. Otherwise, I'll be able to enjoy the feast even more. Tianyang chuckled and clenched the flaming wind sword in his hand. The peak of the first stage of the Bright Chi realm and the 100-feet Chi Sea began to surge. With this move, even if I were to face Yi Zhanling, I would not be at a disadvantage. Tianyang, you are just a piece of trash who has just entered the sect for less than a week. You actually dare to challenge me? Chun Shan's deranged mockery came out of his mouth. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression remained calm. A half-step Mystic class martial spirit might not be too bad, but even with the addition of the low-level Mystic class Ice Fire Blade art, it was still not too bad. This grade was not bad. However, in front of Tianyang, it would not be much stronger than the inferior grade yellow ranked martial spirit paired with the inferior grade yellow ranked martial technique. Now, You should regret coming to me to seek death. Tianyang died. Chun Shan roared, and the river fire blade, which had the characteristics of ice and fire, suddenly burst out with a shocking light. The true essence of the clear Qi realm's third stage gushed madly into the fire river blade. In the next moment, the ice flood dragon martial spirit roared towards the sky. Then, Qin Shan used his footwork and disappeared on the spot. Seeing this, countless people closed their eyes. Tianyang was doomed. Kill! Chun Shan roared, and in the next moment, a terrifying blade aura condensed and rushed towards Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression did not change. He laughed lightly, and without hesitation, the firestorm sword in his hand slashed out horizontally. Flowing cloud sword art. With one slash, the ice fire blade aura was shattered. Seeing this, Chun Shan was stunned, and then his expression turned cold again. So what if you broke my ice fire blade aura? That was just an appetizer. Now, you can receive your death sentence. Ice fire blade art, ice fire double kill. Chun Shan roared, and the fire river blade, which was burning with fire and condensed with ice, instantly split apart. In Chun Shan's hands, two fire river blades appeared. One was fire, and the other was ice. As expected of the ice fire blade art, which is close to the mid-level mystic class. This kind of power is indeed terrifying. A young man murmured, and then looked at Tianyang. Tianyang, you're dead meat. Yes, you're dead meat. That was what everyone was thinking. Under everyone's mourning gaze, Tianyang suddenly laughed loudly and raised the firestorm sword in his hand. Not bad, not bad. This time, I'll definitely be able to eat my fill. In the next moment, he executed the dragon, subduing step. Tianyang's figure suddenly turned illusory, and Chun Shan's ice and fire dual attack lost its target. Before Qin Shan could react, Tianyang's speed had already reached its peak, and in less than a millisecond, he arrived in front of Qin Shan. Slash! Tianyang lightly shouted, and the true yuan in his body surged. Chun Shan had already completely unleashed his martial spirit's power, so there was no need for him to hold back. What? Seeing the sharp sword light, Chun Shan's expression changed, and he hurriedly placed the two fire river blades in front of him, trying to block Tianyang's attack. Bang! The moment the two fire river blades came into contact, they were completely shattered. Tianyang lightly laughed, and once again used the dragon's subduing step, and the sky cloud sword bloomed with a shocking light. Then he slashed out. Flowing cloud sword art, sword out flowing cloud. Boom! The true yuan defense that Qin Shan had condensed was like paper, and it was directly shattered. Qin Shan spat out a mouthful of blood, and this terrifying power even caused Qin Shan to fly back like a cannonball. Tianyang's expression did not change, and his feet stomped on the ground, and he suddenly rushed out dozens of meters, and in the next moment, he directly pierced through the ice dragon's shadow with the sky cloud sword. Ah! Chun Shan screamed, and blood continuously spat out from his mouth. His face was extremely pale, and in the end, he did not manage to reach the ground and directly fainted. In an instant, the ice dragon's shadow also became much dimmer. On the sky cloud sword, rays of light bloomed, as if it was the first time the endless Xinguang leveled up. However, this time, the movement was much smaller. Mysterious fluctuations circulated around Tianyang's body, and a tyrannical aura was emitted from the sky cloud sword. Only powerful souls could see the golden Xinguang, and it soared into the sky from Tianyang's body. After devouring nearly 70% of the ice dragon's martial spirit's power, Tianyang's sky cloud sword finally reached the threshold of breaking through to the upper grade of the yellow rank, and it began to break through. A violent pressure exploded from Tianyang's body, and before the crowd could even react, they were shocked by this terrifying pressure and fainted. The sky cloud sword constantly trembled, as if it was happy for the second leveling up. Tianyang's mouth also curled into a smile. What is that? In the depths of the mountain, the old man's expression changed again. The golden Xinguang pillar that soared into the sky was simply as dazzling as the 9-colored Xinguang from before. Something happened in the north of the continent. The old man murmured. He, who had not experienced such a huge emotional fluctuation for thousands of years, was shocked twice in a short 24 hours. In other parts of the continent, as long as the experts who could see the golden Xinguang pillar, it was the same. The time it took to level up was never too long. After a few minutes, Tianyang's sky cloud sword also successfully leveled up. Chapter 85. Yellow Rank, Upper Grade. At this moment, the sky cloud sword was emitting waves after waves of shocking light. The aura of the martial soul that spread out represented the current grade of the sky cloud sword. From the lowest of the low-grade yellow rank to the top of the upper-grade yellow rank, Tianyang had only used a few months to upgrade the Sky Cloud Sword. The Sky Cloud Sword's secret is not small. Every time it upgrades, it will trigger such a level of heavenly vision. Tianyang stood where he was, holding the flaming wind sword that was attached to the Sky Cloud Sword as he laughed softly. With the soul of a peak heavenly completion realm expert, Tianyang naturally saw the changes caused by the Sky Cloud Sword. However, no matter what, it is still the Sky Cloud Sword that was personally forged by me. The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up. At this moment, the people who had fainted due to the impact of the Sky Cloud Sword's upgrade slowly woke up. Qinshan was actually defeated by Tianyang. As soon as they woke up, they looked around and immediately found Qinshan lying on the ruins, heavily injured and unconscious. His tone was full of shock. What kind of person was Qinshan? He had the ability to become one of the top 10 inner disciples. In the end, he was defeated by Tianyang, a new disciple who had joined the sect for less than a week. Moreover, he had been defeated so thoroughly. How terrifying, that person exclaimed in shock. At this moment, everyone around him had also recovered from their shock. Looking at Tianyang, who was standing motionless in the same place, some people were overwhelmed with emotions like that person. Their hearts were filled with shock, while some people's eyes flashed with a strange light. Qinshan's strength was obvious to all. No matter how strong Tianyang was, it was impossible for him to defeat him so easily. Looking at the situation, Tianyang is probably pretending to be relaxed. After defeating Qinshan, even the top 5 experts would not be able to defeat him like this. Perhaps, under that relaxed appearance, Tianyang is already a lamp that has run out of oil. If that's the case, at this moment, Tianyang was no longer in the 370th, 50th, or 36th place, but 13th place. 13th place. With such a ranking, the cultivation resources one could receive far exceeded that of an ordinary inner disciple. The treatment one could enjoy was also extraordinary. Well, that's it. Even if Tianyang really has the ability to get 13th place, he doesn't have it now. Once he snatches his ranking, that person will immediately announce that he is going into seclusion. Tianyang won't even have a chance to challenge him. The person who discovered it first had a greedy smile on his face as he spoke to the person beside him, who also had an unfriendly expression. When they heard this, their eyes lit up and greed flashed across their faces. Then, Tianyang, one of them shouted, of the heavenly completion realm ranking, Tianyang. 13th place is. Suddenly, Tianyang of the crowd of the people of Chun, of the inner disciple, of the moment stage, of the martial Tianyang. Seeing this, the crowd was stunned. Could it be that Qinshan still had some loyal followers? Looking around, they saw the undisguised greed on those people's faces. The crowd immediately understood that they were taking advantage of Tianyang. Tianyang must have used up a lot of energy to defeat Qinshan, but they immediately attacked. If this wasn't to defeat Tianyang and snatch Tianyang's ranking, what else could it be? Who knows? They might even take away all the treasures on Tianyang's body. Shameless. A young man in the 20s could not help but spit on the ground and said angrily. However, those people were unmoved. Instead, they chuckled. Shameless? Wait until we use the cultivation resources of 13th place to become truly strong. Then we won't be shameless. Now, Tianyang, you should obediently hand over the 13th place. That person laughed maniacally. In their opinion, Tianyang's combat power was not even a fraction of his previous strength. If they wanted to defeat Tianyang, they could probably do it with just a breath. Tianyang, who was immersed in the joy of the heavenly sword's advancement, suddenly noticed the changes in the outside world. His face turned cold. Did these people really think that he had used a lot of energy to defeat Qinshan? Fine, the heavenly sword has just advanced. These people are just food for me. Tianyang sneered and raised the flaming wind sword in his hand. The peak of stage 1 bright Qi realm, 100 feet sea of Qi, began to surge. Stubborn resistance. Seeing Tianyang's actions, the leader snorted and channeled the true yuan in his body to his throat. With the support of the true yuan, his voice became louder. Everyone, use your martial spirits immediately. Tianyang might have some trump cards that he hasn't used yet. We can't let him fail miserably. The leader shouted and channeled the true yuan in his body. He immediately summoned his martial spirit. Upper yellow class martial spirit, green vine. Hearing this, the people who attacked immediately understood. Their eyes flashed, and they nodded slightly as they summoned their martial spirits. Upper yellow class martial spirit, purple radish flower. Middle yellow class martial spirit, swift mouse. Middle yellow class martial spirit, long saber. There were a total of 7 people attacking Tianyang. Now, all 7 of them channeled the true yuan in their bodies to summon their martial spirits. Facing the attacks of these 7 people, even the top 3 disciples of the inner sect wouldn't have an easy time. Tianyang is in a desperate situation now, the inner sect disciple who was in his 20s said in a trembling voice. He was actually being attacked by 7 people. Among these 7 people, the strongest one had the same strength as him. The strongest one had the same strength as Xiaoping. Not to mention, under the roar of the person in the lead, everyone used their strongest killing moves. Gale Palm, Wind Wave Fist, Flame Incineration. Loud shouts came from the mouths of the 7 people, causing the entire courtyard to tremble slightly. The true yuan of the 7 people intertwined and overlapped, forming a huge killing array. Seeing this scene, even if the 20 or so inner disciples wanted to help, they were powerless to do so. If he interfered in a battle of this level, he would become a target for everyone and be killed instantly. Facing this level of attack, even the top 3 disciples of the inner sect could only temporarily avoid it. However, Tianyang remained motionless. He stood where he was, waiting for their attacks. Not bad, not bad. You all follow my wishes and summoned your martial spirits. Tianyang's mouth curved into a smile as he licked his lips. A ray of light shot out from his eyes. Since it's like this, it's not good to decline your treat. Tianyang smiled and raised the flaming wind sword in his hand. In the next moment, Tianyang's voice suddenly rang out. Chapter 86. Sky Extreme Sword Art, First Style. Tianyang shouted coldly as the true essence in his body surged. The Sky Cloud sword in his hand also exploded with Xingguang. The Sky Extreme Sword Art was a mid-grade heaven-class sword art created by the Tianji Sword Emperor himself. Furthermore, the Sky Extreme Sword Art had never been completed. In other words, the incomplete version of the Sky Extreme Sword Art already had the power of a mid-grade heaven-class sword art. If it was completed, wouldn't it surpass the heaven class? Therefore, after entering the first level of the Clear Qi realm and stabilizing his cultivation, the first martial technique that Tianyang practiced was his own creation, the Sky Extreme Sword Art. Although the first style of the Sky Extreme Sword Art wasn't as strong as a mid-grade heaven-class sword art, it could easily kill this group of trash who overestimated themselves and wanted to surround him. Whoosh! It was as if the surrounding swords were trembling. Ling Yuhan's reaction was the biggest. She felt that the Jade Sea sword in her hand was about to fly out of her hand. It was as if Tianyang was the true owner of the Jade Sea sword. As for the others, although they hadn't been possessed by the Sky Cloud sword before, when a mid-grade heaven-class sword art was used, all the swords were trembling. Thousand swords greeting. Unfortunately, Tianyang's cultivation was still too low. The peak of the first level of the Clear Chi realm was already not bad for the Lingyun sect's intersect. But for the Sky Extreme Sword Art, it was just the beginning. Who are you to dare to surround this emperor? A cold light flashed in Tianyang's eyes. In the next moment, the Sky Cloud Sword was used. Then leave something behind. With a cold shout, a terrifying sword light was condensed by the Sky Cloud Sword. Tianyang's vigorous true essence was also drawn out by more than half. One must know that his Qi Si was 100 feet ultimate Qi Si. His true essence reserves were incomparably strong. In the previous battle with Chen Shan, Tianyang had only used less than 20% of his true essence. But now, just by using the first style of the Sky Extreme Sword Art, Tianyang's true essence was drawn out by a whole 70%. After extracting so much true yuan, the might of the first move of the Sky Extreme Sword Art would be incomparably terrifying. Stubborn resistance, Tianyang die. When the leader saw this, he snorted coldly, and the true essence in his body completely erupted. The 6 people beside him also unleashed their strongest attacks. When the 7 of them joined forces, even the top 3 of the intersect would have to retreat. They did not believe that Tianyang, a new disciple who had just fought with Chen Shan and had only been in the sect for less than 7 days, would be able to stop them. Kill! The 7 of them roared angrily. The 7 streaks of true origin also turned into extremely strong killing moves that violently rushed towards Tianyang. However, Tianyang's expression did not change in the slightest when he saw this scene. The heaven cloud, sword in his hand, slightly slashed horizontally. Sky Extreme Sword Art, first style, erupt. A brilliant and resplendent sword light burst out from the tip of the flaming wind sword. In the blink of an eye, it expanded into an arc of sword light that surrounded Tianyang. It was dazzling and eye-catching, as if it was the most magnificent piece of art in the world. Seeing this move, everyone was a little stunned. Then, this brilliant sword light collided with the 7 tyrannical attacks. Poof! There was no earth-shattering sound, just the sound of a paper window being pierced through, and the 7 tyrannical attacks were shattered. However, this sword did not seem to have used much strength at all. The tyrannical aura did not weaken at all, and it furiously rushed towards the 7 people. How is this possible? Seeing that the 7 of them combined, their strongest attack was easily shattered by Tianyang as if it was made of tofu. The leader of the 7 people could not help but change his expression as he exclaimed in shock. However, before he could finish his sentence, the ray of sword light had already arrived before them. Damn it! I don't believe that no matter how strong your sword is, after breaking through our combined attack, how much power can it have? The leader of the 7 people had a fierce look on his face. The true essence of the second stage of the Bright Chi realm exploded to the limit. He actually did not defend himself, and instead, he attacked fiercely towards the sword light. Seeing this, Tianyang only smiled slightly and did not bother to pay attention to them. As the creator of the Sky Extreme Sword Art, Tianyang naturally knew the tyrannical power of the Sky Extreme Sword Art. Although the first form of the Sky Extreme Sword Art was created when he was at the peak of the Dao Fire realm, and even after being polished and modified in the later stages of the Sky Extreme Sword Art, the power of the Sky Extreme Sword Art was only at the Earth level upper level. However, to kill these weak inner disciples who had only mastered profound level martial techniques, did not even have a profound level martial spirit, and were only at the weak second stage of the Bright Chi realm, it was as easy as blowing off dust. Boom! At this moment, that person's attack also collided with the sword light of the Sky Extreme Sword Art's first form, exploding his true essence and causing a loud explosion. However, not only did this self-detonating true essence not have the slightest effect, it even forced out the true might of this sword light. Whoosh! A ray of light flashed, and the leader's face suddenly turned pale. On his left side, his entire left arm had disappeared. In the next moment, this paleness turned into boundless fear. However, he no longer had the strength to maintain his standing posture, and with a plop, he fell to the ground. Fresh blood flowed out. In a short while, the youth's body was soaked. After this battle, even if the leader did not die, he would definitely not be able to return to his peak state. However, Tianyang did not have the slightest bit of pity. This person wanted to seriously injure him, or even kill him. He only injured him severely, broke his arm, and conveniently devoured 90% of his martial spirit's power. He was still a little lenient. A broken arm was enough to make him a cripple, and 90% of his martial spirit's power was just icing on the cake. No! A youth's face turned pale as he looked at the sword light that suddenly exploded with a terrifying speed. Under Tianyang's control, the speed of the sword light was not fast at the beginning. However, the leader actually used his true essence to stupidly activate the first form of the Sky Extreme Sword Art. As a result, the besiegers, who had originally been able to struggle at death's door, did not even have the time to do so now. Tianyang, I was wrong. I was wrong. I should not have listened to Ho Tao and made an enemy of you. The youth who screamed looked at the sword light that was releasing an unparalleled pressure to the point that he could not move. Suddenly, he cried out and knelt on the ground. This is my space bag, and it contains my treasures. I beg you, spare my life. The youth who screamed said with snot and tears. Previously, the strongest Ho Tao had been turned into a cripple by this sword. He was not as strong as Ho Tao. If he was hit by this sword, wouldn't he die on the spot? Hearing this, Tianyang was slightly stunned. At this moment, the remaining 5 people seemed to have understood something, and like the youth who screamed, they knelt on the ground. Chapter 87. Other than the leader who was severely injured by Tianyang, the rest of the 7 people knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. This scene caused the crowd to be incomparably shocked. One must know that the strength of those 7 people could not be considered weak. Even if the 7 of them joined forces, they could not achieve perfect coordination. However, the power of the 7 of them together was not inferior to the previous 5. However, such a combination was defeated by Tianyang's sword. The leader was even severely injured. The rest of them knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. If this happened to an old disciple, no one would be surprised. However, the problem was that Tianyang was only a new disciple who had joined the sect for less than a week. Among the new disciples, he was definitely one of the newest ones. However, this newest disciple caused the 7 old disciples who were not weak to suffer a great loss. Space bags. Tianyang narrowed his eyes when he heard the 6 of them begging for mercy. He did not want to take their lives. After all, he had just been reborn into this body not long ago. It was not good for him to cause too much trouble. Moreover, he was cultivating again and had many things to do. Those things were far more important than killing the 7 of them. Even though Tianyang did not plan to take his life anymore, the 6 of them had given him their interspatial bags. How could Tianyang not take it when he had almost picked up such a great bargain? Throw them on the ground and get lost, Tianyang said calmly. Hearing this, the 6 of them immediately threw their space bags on the ground as if they had been pardoned. At this moment, the sword light that was almost fixed under Tianyang's control suddenly moved. Then it directly penetrated their bodies. However, it did not cause any harm to them. Seeing this, the 6 of them heaved a sigh of relief. Then, they immediately ran away without looking back. In their eyes, Tianyang was a jinx. A jinx. The 7 of them joined forces, and their strength was comparable to the top 5, but they were still defeated by Tianyang with 1 strike. If such a person was not a jinx, what was he? Cultivating in the clear chi realm requires a lot of spiritual stones. The larger the sea of chi, the more vital core it can store. Naturally, the consumption of spiritual stones will also increase. The sea of chi that I have opened is 100 feet. The amount of vital core it can store is the highest in history. Therefore, the consumption of spiritual stones is also extremely large. Tianyang muttered. Fortunately, when he opened the Sea of Qi, he had directly raised his cultivation to the peak of level 1 clear Qi realm. Otherwise, it would have taken a long time to break through to level 2 clear Qi realm. However, although the difficulty of breaking through, the increase in combat power was obvious. Sea of Qi, what was the pinnacle? That was to surpass everything to the point where it could not go any further. The sea of spiritual stones, the sea of chi, the sea of chi, the sea of chi, the sea of chi, the sea of the sea of chi. A terrifying quintessential essence that was 3 times the size of a 99-foot chi, sea naturally caused Heavenly Sun's battle prowess to soar. However, the demand for cultivation resources also increased tremendously. If not for this, Tianyang would not be interested in these people's space bags. In Tianyang's opinion, other than some cultivation resources, these people's space bags were probably trash. He waved his hand, and the 6 space bags flew into his hand. Then, he threw them into his own space bag. Feeling the space bag tremble, Tianyang could not help but frown. This space bag is still a little weak. Well, it's not a real space bag after all. If I have time in the future, I'll buy a real one. Then, Tianyang put away the flaming wind sword called Ling Yuhan and left, leaving behind a handsome back view. The crowd looked at Chun Shan, who was seriously injured and unconscious, and then looked at the large group of underlings in Chun Shan's courtyard that Ling Yuhan had single-handedly taken care of. They were extremely shocked. Tianyang and Ling Yuhan were new disciples who had been in the sect for less than a week. However, these 2 people, they directly beat up the 13th disciple of the inner sect, Chun Shan's courtyard. Even the house was turned into such a state. I'm afraid the inner sect is going to change. Can the top 10 positions finally be moved? Taking care of Chun Shan was just a small test for Tianyang. He only used 20% of his true origin, and he did not use all of his strength. After all, he had not mastered the flaming wind sword for long, and he did not immediately get used to it. The unexpected surprise was that the sky cloud sword had leveled up. It was a high-grade yellow rank martial spirit, and it allowed Tianyang's cultivation speed to increase by a lot. 10,000 years later, the grade of the martial spirit was linked to one's talent. The stronger the sky cloud sword was, the stronger the talent of Tianyang's body. The first style of the sky peak sword art is indeed as extraordinary as it was 10,000 years ago. To be able to erupt with such power with only 70% of my true yuan. Tianyang smiled. He was quite satisfied with the middle grade heaven rank martial skill that he had created. To be able to make the Tianji Sword Emperor praise it, one could see the tyrannical power of the Sky Peak sword art. Now, let's count the rewards. After summarizing his understanding of his own strength from this battle, Tianyang grinned. The last 7 people were not that strong, but in order to test the Sky Peak sword art, he had used up a lot of true yuan. However, the rewards were also quite plentiful. The martial spirit power that the 7 people gave him was almost enough to upgrade the Sky Cloud Sword from low-grade yellow rank to middle-grade yellow rank. However, the upgrade of the martial spirit was harder than the previous one. The martial spirit power of these 7 people probably did not even reach 1/5 of the Sky Peak sword art. Spirit stones. As expected, they're all low-grade spirit stones. The most one has is only 238 spirit stones, and the least one has only a dozen spirit stones. Rank 13th, I can receive about 50 to 100 spirit stones every month. If I calculate it like this, it will be a little difficult for me to cultivate. The 7 people were only at the first or second stage of the clear chi realm. Their consumption of spirit stones was naturally not that much. Therefore, even if their family was powerful, they would not have a lot of spirit stones stored. However, Tianyang was different. The total number of spirit stones that the 7 people had was just 800. For the Tianji Sword Emperor, it was not even enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. He also took the opportunity to count the other things, but most of them were just miscellaneous items. Tianyang did not even look at them and threw them away. In the end, there were only 800 spirit stones and some low-grade artifacts left. There was not a single mid-grade artifact. Whatever, these spirit stones can barely allow me to cultivate for half a month. Now that I have consumed a lot of true essence, let's cultivate first, Tianyang muttered. Then he took out 50 spirit stones from the 800 and placed them beside him. He sat down cross-legged, closed his eyes, and began to circulate the divine desolate heaven spirit art. After entering the clear chi realm, the first stage of the divine desolate heaven spirit art, spirit absorption into the body, was truly opened. True essence circulated in the spiral meridians. The divine desolate heaven spirit art slowly drove the streams of true essence. The speed at which the true essence circulated in Tianyang's body suddenly increased by countless times. The surrounding heaven and earth spirit qi seemed to be torn out and was sucked into Tianyang's body by a fierce suction force. The 50 spirit stones trembled, and a considerable portion of them dimmed in a short period of time. If someone were to watch Tianyang cultivate outside, they would be shocked to discover that. Chapter 88. If others were to see the spiritual energy vortex above Tianyang's head that was madly absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, they would probably be scared silly. If this spiritual energy vortex appeared on an elite of the primordial transformation realm, or even the Tao fire realm, it would not attract much attention. However, the problem was that Tianyang was only at the peak of the first level of the bright qi realm. The power of the divine wilderness sky spirit technique was fully displayed when Tianyang was cultivating it. The terrifying speed of absorbing spiritual energy was probably not inferior to a heaven-level cultivation technique. One day later, the night passed in the blink of an eye for Tianyang, who was immersed in cultivation. A ball of light burst out from Tianyang's eyes, as if it had lit up the entire dark room. Tianyang also woke up. After one night of cultivation, not only did I replenish all of my true yuan, but even my true yuan cultivation improved a little. My divine wilderness sky spirit technique is indeed powerful. Tianyang's mouth curled into a smile as he gradually calmed down the surging true yuan in his body. Then he looked at the spiritual stones that he had used to cultivate. Spiritual stones were the gathering of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth that it contained was incomparably vast. Although these spiritual stones were only ordinary low-grade spiritual stones, they were completely sufficient for the bright qi realm. However, after one night, these 50 low-grade spiritual stones had all dimmed without exception. Based on this situation, these 50 low-grade spiritual stones can at most support me for 2 to 3 days of cultivation. If that's the case, 800 low-grade spiritual stones are really not enough. Tianyang frowned and muttered. Then, he revealed a bitter smile. 100 feet ultimate qi si was indeed powerful, but the amount of spiritual energy of heaven and earth that was consumed was terrifying. If I just snatch it, it would be too disharmonious. The soaring cloud sect's intersect definitely doesn't have so many idiots like Chen Shan and the other 7. Then, I can only do the mission. Tianyang laughed lightly. Then he kept the 50 low-grade spiritual stones in his space bag. Just as he was about to greet Ling Yuhan, he suddenly realized something. Yuhan has actually cultivated the introductory chapter of the Ice Emperor's celestial sword technique to such a level. Even if the Ice Emperor was still alive, he might not be able to cultivate at such a godly speed. TSK, this disciple of mine sure has many secrets. But, since she is about to break through, it's not suitable for me to bring her to do the mission. Surprised, Tianyang's Qi Si Spirit Technique, Ling Yuhan's Heaven, and Earth Spirit Realm Spirit Technique, Ling Yuhan's Heaven. However, Tianyang did not intend to disturb Ling Yuhan. Although Ling Yuhan would not be able to break through in a short period of time, disturbing others in the midst of cultivation was a great taboo. Tianyang casually left a note explaining where he was going. Then, he stepped out of the courtyard and headed towards the mission hall. A few days ago, he had wanted to take a look at the mission. However, that idiot Wu Ming actually provoked Tianyang. However, even if he did not complete the mission, the rewards from killing Qin Shan and the other 7 idiots were much better than a normal mission. The mission hall, as the place where the soaring cloud sects intersect disciples obtained the most spiritual stones, the mission hall was always bustling with activity. Moreover, it was currently in the morning. Everyone had just woken up from their cultivation state. Regardless of whether it was a battle or something else, they could not do well. Therefore, there were even more people in the mission hall. Have you heard? Yesterday, during the day, the new disciple who defeated Xiao Pingwu and Wu Meng as soon as he entered the sect, even defeated Chen Shan, who was ranked 13th. That's nothing. I was not far from the scene yesterday. After defeating Chen Shan, Tianyang was immediately surrounded by 7 enlightened Qi realm disciples. Such a lineup is enough to defeat a normal inner sect disciple in an instant. However, do you know what happened to Tianyang? A young man was talking to another young man. It was as if it was a great honor for him to be the one who witnessed Tianyang's battle with his own eyes. What happened? Hearing the terrifying number of 7 enlightened Qi realm disciples, the inner sect disciple who wanted to report the big news immediately became curious. No matter what, Tianyang had just entered the enlightened Qi realm not long ago. He must have used all his strength to defeat Chen Shan. Furthermore, he was surrounded by 7 people. The 7 of them even used their martial spirits. Their leader, Ho Tao, is ranked 19th among the inner sect disciples. He even used a mystic lower-class martial skill. However, Tianyang only raised his sword, and an arc of sword light burst out, shattering all of their attacks. He even defeated Ho Tao in an instant. Hearing this, the inner sect disciple was so shocked that he was speechless. A new disciple who had just entered the enlightened Qi realm could not only defeat Chen Shan, but could also defeat 7 people who were as strong as the top 5 disciples in the inner sect. How terrifying was Tianyang? Ahem. At this moment, even the Tianji Sword Emperor could not bear to continue listening. He coughed lightly and interrupted the conversation between the two. "Excuse me, do you know where the mission is?" Hearing this, the 2 young men were stunned. The one who was talking earlier even showed a hint of anger. However, this anger disappeared the moment he saw Tianyang. "It's actually Senior Tianyang." "Good morning, Senior Tianyang. You want to know where the mission is?" "It's right there. Do you need me to take you there?" The young man was pleasantly surprised. Tianyang was currently ranked 13th. He was an existence that they could only dream of. However, such an existence actually took the initiative to ask them for directions. "No need, no need. It's right there." Seeing this young man's enthusiasm, Tianyang could not help but feel a little embarrassed. He pointed at the direction that the young man had pointed and asked. "Yes." The young man nodded and continued to ask, "Senior Tianyang, you really don't need me to take you there?" "No need, no need. I really don't need you." A trace of sweat appeared on Tianyang's forehead. His expression became extremely strange. How did this person become his fan? In his previous life, as an emperor, he had many fans. However, he was now just an ordinary stage 1 enlightened Qi realm cultivator. How could he have fans? As for the young man's question, Tianyang did not even think twice before rejecting it. What was going on? The Tianji Sword Emperor was most afraid of trouble. Tianyang quickened his pace and arrived in front of the mission wall. He carefully looked at the missions on the wall. There were all kinds of missions in the mission hall. There were normal missions, such as investigation or bounties. There were also unusual missions, such as finding something. As for the latter, Tianyang naturally rejected it. Then, he looked at the bounties. He was not good at investigation, and the rewards were not high. However, if it was a bounty, the reward would be extraordinary. Bounty, Lu Jin, the homicidal maniac of the Arctic state. Chapter 89. Lu Jin, the homicidal maniac of the Blizzard state? Tianyang looked at the beautiful face on the bounty list and murmured. Before this body came to the Soaring Cloud sect, he had heard of Lu Jin when he was still a genius. At that time, Lu Jin had just killed his first victim, not far from the city controlled by the Tian family. He was about to be caught, but for some mysterious reason, Lu Jin escaped. Therefore, even the previous Tianyang, who was focused on cultivation, had heard of Lu Jin. However, he did not expect that Lu Jin would still be so active after a few years. He was even listed on the Soaring Cloud sect's bounty list. Tianyang shifted his gaze downwards and looked at the introduction of Lu Jin. Lu Jin, at the age of 35, had reached the 4th level of the Bright Qi realm. He practiced the evil martial skill, the Blood Palm, which is a high-grade profound class martial skill. It could only be practiced by absorbing people's blood essence. Because of this, Lu Jin had been killing people without restraint since a few years ago, refusing to change despite repeated warnings. Towards the end, even some of the officials in the cities of the Arctic Empire could not stop him. After all, a person at the 4th level of the Bright Chi realm who practiced a high-grade profound class martial skill could not be stopped by ordinary people. No matter what, the Blizzard State was just an ordinary country in the northern part of the continent. It was as weak as an ant in the eyes of some big forces in the central region. Naturally, a city could not be full of strong people. Blood Palm? I seem to have heard of this name. Looking at the blood palm that was specially marked with red paint, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and said. However, after thinking carefully, he could not remember. Well, Tianyang had been in the Sky Continent for hundreds of years in his previous life. He had encountered countless high-grade, profound, class martial skills. Even if they were evil, there were still many of them. The blood palm, although the name was domineering, it could not stay in Tianyang's mind for long. He started killing people 5 years ago and has been killing people all the way until now. This Lu Jin is truly savage. Tianyang said softly, a trace of coldness surging in his eyes. According to the introduction, not only had Lu Jin slaughtered innocent people, he had even killed babies that had just been born not long ago. Even babies and innocent people were killed. This kind of person could be said to be deranged. Even the Tianji Sword Emperor could not tolerate this. Baleful blood palm, it is just a palm art that disrupts the flow of the enemy's blood. Even if it is the flowing cloud sword art, it can still be defeated by the vast righteousness contained in the flowing cloud mentality. So what if he is at the 4th level of the Bright Chi realm? Just nice. I can use this Lu Jin to test my current strength. Tianyang snorted coldly. Then he stretched out his hand and took the bounty that represented Lu Jin. Seeing this, the expressions of the crowd who had been watching from the side all stiffened. They looked at the people beside them in disbelief and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. Tianyang actually took the bounty of the homicidal maniac Lu Jin. This bounty is different from ordinary missions. If you want to give up on it, you can't give up on it. There are other missions that are easier than killing Lu Jin. Although the rewards are far less than killing Lu Jin, the safety is much better than that bounty. Tianyang actually chose it. The young man said in a low voice. It seemed that killing Lu Jin was an impossible task for the inner disciples of the Soaring Cloud sect. In fact, it was precisely because of this that the bounty for killing Lu Jin had been hanging for 3 years. The rewards were increased again and again, but Lu Jin's strength also increased. The first person to accept the bounty was now a corpse in an unknown location. The second and third people were the same. It should be known that those who dared to accept the bounty were at least the top 30 inner disciples. Even such people were killed by Lu Jin. The next people to accept the bounty were even stronger, but they all died. Until the last time, which was also the only time, someone finally managed to escape from Lu Jin's hands. However, he was also seriously injured. If he did not make it back in time, he would have become a cripple. That person was Zhang Chun, who was ranked 6th on the stone wall of the inner disciples. Before he accepted Lu Jin's bounty, he was already ranked 8th on the stone wall. However, after he accepted the bounty, he returned with serious injuries. After such a long time, he had only risen by 2 places. This showed how terrifying Lu Jin was. The bounty on Lu Jin also changed from an ordinary bounty mission to a life-reaping nightmare in the eyes of the inner sect disciples. Now that he saw Tianyang accepting the bounty, the young man was shocked. You want to accept Lu Jin's bounty? At this moment, Tianyang had already arrived at the place where the bounty was accepted. The disciple in charge of registration was shocked when he saw Lu Jin's bounty in Tianyang's hands. Someone actually dared to accept the bounty. That's right. Tianyang nodded. Although he did not know what was so special about Lu Jin's bounty, since he dared to accept it, he had the confidence to complete it. Hurry up. Hearing this, the young man did not dare to say anything else. His fingers trembled as he registered Tianyang's name. Then, he watched as Tianyang left the mission hall. The others also noticed the young man's strange behavior. When they asked about it, they found out that Tianyong had accepted Lu Jin's bounty. It's over. Tianyong did not know about the huge uproar in the inner disciples after he left. Even if he knew, he would not care. After all, in his opinion, although the Soaring Cloud sect was not weak among the Rank 9 sects, it was only among the Rank 9 sects. Tianyong was reborn. Naturally, he would not be limited to the Soaring Cloud sect. In his previous life, he was able to break through to the extreme state. In this life, he could do the same. In fact, he even wanted to reach a higher level in the mysterious realm above the G realm, to challenge the peak of the martial path. This Lu Jin actually has a nickname called Blood Hands? That's right. He cultivates the blood fiend palm. His hands are probably stained with blood. Tianyong casually flipped through the information on the mission given by the Soaring Cloud sect. The information on the mission was very detailed. It was just a person, but there were 4 or 5 pages. Tianyong only skimmed through most of the historical records and skipped over them. The only thing he cared about was Lu Jin's strength. He often appears in big cities, but recently, he seems to be in Yun's city. Tianyong repeated softly and turned his horse around. Not long after, in front of the gate of Yun City, a young man jumped down from his horse and looked at the tall and majestic city walls. Chapter 90. Yun City. As one of the few major cities in the Arctic state, Yun City was very famous in the Arctic state and even in the surrounding countries. The Yang clan, one of the 8 great clans of the Arctic state, controlled this city. Of course, in reality, it was still controlled by the Arctic state. The Yang clan was just a proxy. However, the Yang family's methods were also impressive. After taking control of this city, in a short 10 years, they turned Cloud City from an unknown small city in the south of the snowstorm country into one of the few big cities. Because of the large population, Lu Jin had set his eyes on this city. The Yang clan. I seem to have met them a few times when I was young, but I am not familiar with them. Tianyong muttered. As he walked on the road, the traffic around him did not attract his attention. In his palm, there was a simple and exquisite token that was flickering with a faint light. This token was given to him by the Soaring Cloud sect. Because Bloody Hand Lu Jin had killed too many people, if one walked by the river, one's shoes would get wet. Therefore, someone had left a mark on it. Under normal circumstances, this mark was not very useful. However, once it was used during a pursuit, it would be very useful. This mark was used by Tianyong to locate Bloody Hand Lu Jin. This token was used to communicate with the mark and locate Lu Jin. Other than the 500 spiritual stones given by the Soaring Cloud sect, there was also the 1,000 spiritual stones given by the mission issuer. This Lu Jin is really infuriating. Tianyong chuckled. Before he left, the disciple in charge of registering the mission had specially said this. However, looking at his expression, it was obvious that he did not think that Tianyong could really kill Lu Jin. After all, Lu Jin was at the 4th stage of the Bright Chi realm, had the dark high-level evil blood palm, and had been in countless life and death battles. People from the sects and academies all had a common problem. That was, their life and death battle experience was pitifully low. For the outer disciples of the Soaring Cloud sect, killing a demonic beast was enough to make them tremble in fear, not to mention a life and death battle with someone like Lu Jin. According to Tianyong's estimation, Zhang Chun, who was ranked 6th, had the ability to kill Lu Jin. At the very least, both sides would suffer great losses. However, he was beaten up one-sidedly. If he did not have the life-saving item given by the Soaring Cloud sect, he would have died at Lu Jin's hands. This was the reason for his lack of life and death battle experience. However, Tianyong did not suffer from this common problem at all. In his previous life, in order to reach the reaching heaven state, he had engaged in countless life and death battles, ventured into countless ruins, and suffered heavy injuries countless times. In the most dangerous of all, he had almost lost his 2 arms, which were the most important part of sword cultivation. It could be said that those who ascended to the martial emperor's position all stepped on piles of corpses. The Sky Pole Sword Emperor was no exception. It's starting to heat up. As expected, the Lu Jin is in Cloud City. Sensing the slight change in the token in his hand, Heavenly Sun narrowed his eyes. Using his soul power to communicate with the token, he immediately determined Lu Jin's location. Then, he sped up and rushed over. Cloud City is indeed a city under the control of the Yang family, one of the 8 great families. It's much more dangerous than Cloud City. In a corner of Cloud City, a middle-aged man looked at the intersection behind him that had been blocked by cultivators. If he did not have rich experience in fighting and escaping, he would have died. If that was the case, he would have been surrounded by so many cultivators and then killed. No, I can't stay in Cloud City. It's too dangerous. I have to go through so much trouble to kill someone and risk being killed. I might as well go to some small village to play. It's a pity that the blood palm needs to devour people's blood essence to improve. 5 years ago, I could kill anyone. Now, I have to be at least at the 5th level of the body refining realm. The middle-aged man sighed. His space bag flashed, and he changed his clothes and walked out of the alley. If he did not see it with his own eyes, no one would be able to recognize him. This ordinary-looking middle-aged man was actually the infamous Bloody Hand Lu Jin in the Snow Gale Nation. Above the 5th level of the body refining realm. That's really hard to find. But I can also kill babies. Massacring ordinary people is boring, but seeing the terrified screams of the babies before they die in my hands, that feeling, it's so good. Lu Jin's eyes flashed with a cruel light. He stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. His hands trembled, not because he was afraid, but because he was excited. I'm not coming to this shitty Cloud City. How can I, Bloody Hand Lu Jin, fall in this place? Lu Jin turned his head to look at the deserted street as a sinister glint flashed across his eyes. Wait until my blood fiend palm is fully cultivated. Everyone in Cloud City will have to die. I think you won't have that chance. As soon as Lu Jin finished speaking, a calm voice came from above. Lu Jin looked up and saw a young man standing on the wall. His eyes were emotionless as he looked at Lu Jin indifferently. The soaring cloud sect's inner disciple robe was very eye-catching. Bright Chi Realm, 1st level. Tianyang did not hide his aura, so Lu Jin could tell a glance. I was wondering who you were, but you're just a piece of trash at the 1st level of the Bright Chi Realm. Soaring cloud sect's inner disciple is very powerful. But I don't know if you know, but I've already killed 5 of your inner disciples. Lu Jin said cruelly. The Bright Chi Realm's true yuan slowly circulated in his body. His hands were gradually covered with a layer of blood. Bright Chi Realm. He had only killed a few cultivators at this level. He did not expect that in such a short period of time, someone at the 1st level of the Bright Chi Realm would come knocking on his door. Moreover, it was a disciple of the Soaring Cloud sect, the overlord of the Snow Gale Nation. In Lu Jin's opinion, Tianyang was only at the 1st level of the Bright Chi Realm. In front of him, who was at the 4th level of the Bright Chi Realm, he was simply courting death. A person at the 1st level of the Bright Chi Realm is equivalent to 10 people at the 5th level of the body refining realm. In this case, as long as I kill this Soaring Cloud sect disciple, I have a high chance of breaking through to the great success of the baleful blood palm. Lu Jin thought to himself. Because of Tianyang's cultivation, he could not help but feel a trace of contempt and underestimate his opponent. That's right, a normal person at the 1st level of the Bright Chi Realm would only end up dead in front of a person at the 4th level of the Bright Chi Realm. Unless he was a true genius, no matter how strong he was, he would not be able to escape from Lu Jin's baleful blood palm. Obviously, Lu Jin did not think that Tianyang was a genius at the 1st level of the Bright Chi Realm who could fight against a person at the 4th level of the Bright Chi Realm. Who would have thought that the famous Bloody Hand Lu Jin was actually such a trash? Tianyang's indifferent voice rang out. Hearing this, Lu Jin's face twisted to the extreme. Blue veins popped out on his forehead. Obviously, Tianyang's words had infuriated him. A pair of bloody hands suddenly attacked. Chapter 91. Kid, you're courting death. Lu Jin roared. His radiant Chi realm true essence gathered madly in his hands, forming a pair of bloody hands. He, Lu Jin, had dominated the Arctic state since 5 years ago, slaughtering countless people. Even the Arctic state's royal family could not do anything to him. Now, his baleful blood palm was about to reach completion. He was also a fourth-stage Radiant Chi Realm Master. Yet Tianyang, a teenager at most, dared to provoke him? With just a few words, Lu Jin was enraged by Tianyang, courting death. Hearing this, Tianyang chuckled. In a flash, he appeared in front of Lu Jin. Using the dragon's subduing steps, his body suddenly became illusory. Seeing this, Lu Jin was stunned. Then, his face became ferocious again. Your movement technique is not bad, but if you think you can escape from me with this, you're dreaming. You dare to offend me, Lu Jin? Then prepare to die. Upper-grade yellow rank, mountain-crushing palm. Lu Jin roared. His fourth-stage Radiant Chi Realm true essence surged. His blood-red palms suddenly exploded with a tyrannical force. Seeing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed. This guy is only using an upper-grade yellow rank martial art technique. Facing the Tianji Sword Emperor, he dared to use such a low-level martial art technique. He was courting death. Sword! Tianyang roared. The flaming wind sword appeared in his hand. The Tianyang sword flashed and entered the flaming wind sword. The flaming wind sword itself was a rare mid-grade weapon. In addition, Tianyang's Tianyang sword had reached upper-grade yellow rank. In addition to the uniqueness of the Tianyang sword itself, its upper-grade yellow rank power was close to half a step into the profound rank. In addition to Tianyang's profound swordsmanship, dealing with Lu Jin's move was a piece of cake. Flowing cloud sword technique. Tianyang roared. His sea of chi surged. Majestic true essence condensed in the sword. In the next moment, the flowing cloud sword technique and the mountain-crushing palm collided. Boom! A huge sound erupted from the center of the collision between the two, setting off a strong wave of air. The surrounding tall trees were even blown askew, and this huge movement was directly transmitted out. What's going on? A middle-aged man was walking on the side of the road when he suddenly heard the terrifying sound. His expression changed slightly. Could it be that there are experts fighting? Judging from this voice, he must be at least at the third level of the Bright Chi realm. How could such a strong person be fighting near me? I've been stuck at the second level of the Clear Chi realm for a long time. Maybe I can break through after watching this battle. The middle-aged man said excitedly. Then, he immediately circulated his true essence and rushed to the place where Tianyang and Lu Jin were fighting. In other places, there were also people who heard the commotion. Some people's expressions changed greatly, and they hastily fled. There were also quite a few people who, like the middle-aged man, headed toward the location of the battle to watch it. After all, in Cloud City, the Radiant Chi realm was not considered weak. Although it was not considered a high-end combat power, it was still quite rare for the ordinary citizens of Cloud City to see such experts fight. At this time, in the center of the battle, Lu Jin was continuously channeling true essence. Under the effect of the mountain-crushing palm, Lu Jin's bare hands could even go against a mid-grade, bejeweled weapon like the flaming wind sword. However, the more true essence he channeled, the more Lu Jin was shocked. How could this kid be so strong? Lu Jin was the clearest about the power of his mountain-shattering palm. Although it was only a normal high-grade yellow-ranked martial skill, under the effect of the baleful blood palm, the power of the mountain-shattering palm wasn't any weaker than a peerless-grade yellow-rank palm skill. In addition to his true essence at the fourth level of the Bright Chi realm, he thought that it would be easy to crush Tianyang. However, the reality was the exact opposite of what Lu Jin thought. Not only did Tianyang successfully block his mountain-crushing palm, he even used his unique swordsmanship to suppress Lu Jin. This kid is only at the first level of the Bright Chi realm, but he's already so strong. This kind of talent is terrifying. Lu Jin's eyes flashed. In time, this kid will definitely become a 7th or 8th level Bright Chi realm master, or even an Essence Transformation realm master. An Essence Transformation realm master, even in the entire Arctic state, is considered one of the top fighters. If this kid becomes an essence transformation realm master, then it will be easy for him to kill me. This kid can't be left alive. Thinking of this, Lu Jin's face suddenly became ferocious. In the next moment, a terrifying force burst out, directly pushing Tianyang back. Relying on this reaction force, Lu Jin also retreated a few steps. His blood-red eyes stared fixedly at Tianyang. Kid, your talent is not weak. However, you are only at the first level of the Bright Chi realm. I am at the fourth level of the Bright Chi realm. I have opened up 3 more Chi seas than you. My true essence is so abundant that it can completely crush you to death. Lu Jin laughed coldly. Hearing this, Tianyang's heart trembled. The cultivation of the Bright Chi realm was completely different from the normal accumulation of true essence and strengthening of the physical body in the body refining realm. Every level of the Bright Chi realm represented the opening of an additional Chi sea. At the 9th level of the Bright Chi realm, one would have opened up 9 Chi seas. Although Tianyang had opened up 100 Zhang ultimate Chi sea, it was only 1. The amount of true essence was not comparable to a true master's. However, this was only in theory. In reality, Tianyang's true essence was even more abundant than Lu Jin's. He had opened up 100 Zhang ultimate Chi sea. Ultimate? What is ultimate? It is to completely crush martial artists of the same level in all aspects. Although he only had 100 Zhang Chi sea, the amount of true essence he could store was 3 times that of a 99 Zhang Chi sea. As his strength increased, the amount of true essence he could store would be even more terrifying. Lu Jin was only an ordinary cultivator. At most, he could open up a Chi sea of 4 to 500 Zhang. Even if he had reached the 4th level of the Bright Chi realm and opened up 4 Chi seas, it was still nothing to Tianyang. In terms of true essence storage, Tianyang would not lose to Lu Jin at all. However, I am a bloody hand Lu Jin. If I had to use my true essence to grind you to death, then I would not have the demeanor of the bloody hand Lu Jin. Lu Jin's face had a trace of a sinister smile as he spoke in a cold voice. So, I'll let you see my true strength. Die in despair under the suppression of my absolute strength. Lu Jin laughed maniacally as the true essence in his body suddenly exploded. His true essence, which was originally at the 4th level of the Bright Chi realm, suddenly began to surge. Seeing this, even Tianyang could not help but change his expression. I'm not at the 4th level of the Bright Chi realm, but... Chapter 92. 5th level of the Bright Chi realm. With this kind of strength, even in a big city like Yin City, he would be considered a strong fighter. Sensing the terrifying cultivation that suddenly erupted from Lu Jin's body, Tianyang's face could not help but change. He never expected that Lu Jin would actually have a breakthrough. Not being well-informed can really kill people. If I didn't do it and let another inner disciple take on this mission, I'm afraid that he would be dead by now. Looking at Lu Jin's soaring aura, Heavenly Sun smiled bitterly in his heart. Just as Tianyang said, no one in the Soaring Cloud sect would have thought that Lu Jin would have a breakthrough in just a few months. As a cultivator of the 5th level of the Bright Chi realm, he had countless life and death experiences. Furthermore, he had mastered the high-level dark class Evil Blood Palm. Unless it was Yi Zhanling himself, no one else would be able to survive. As for the number 1 inner disciple, Yi Zhanling, he was always elusive and rarely took on missions. Once he did, it would be a dangerous mission with a lot of rewards. Yi Zhanling was probably still fighting for a mission that was as difficult as killing Lu Jin. Naturally, he wouldn't be able to deal with Lu Jin, but I could have used my true yuan to crush him when I was at the 4th level of the Bright Chi realm. But now that I'm at the 5th level of the Bright Chi realm, it's a different story. Licking his lips, Tianyang's eyes showed no signs of retreating. On the contrary, he was extremely excited. When Lu Jin was at the 4th level of the Bright Chi realm, Tianyang's true yuan was only slightly stronger than his. Now that Lu Jin had broken through to the 5th level of the Bright Chi realm, even Tianyang's ultimate sea of Qi could not surpass him. After all, The difference of 4 Cs of qi was enough to make up for the difference in quality between Lu Jin's C of qi and Tianyang's. That's Bloody Hand Lu Jin. At this time, the middle-aged man who first sensed the battle finally arrived. He was shocked to see Lu Jin, who was immersed in the true yuan of the 5th level of the bright qi realm, and laughing madly. Lu Jin's name was well known throughout the entire Arctic state. Who would have thought that the battle between two strong fighters was between Lu Jin and a teenager? What's going on? This young man was clearly only at the 1st level of the bright qi realm. Judging from his aura, Lu Jin had broken through to the 5th stage of the bright qi realm. Could it be that this young man was fighting with Lu Jin before? The moment the middle-aged man saw Tianyang, he could not help but roar in his heart. It was actually a youth at the 1st level of the radiant qi realm who was fighting Lu Jin. Brat. At the same time, Lu Jin's true yuan cultivation at the 5th level of the bright qi realm had completely stabilized. His eyes, which had been dyed red by the slaughter, flickered with a bloody light that was filled with killing intent. You are only at the 1st level of the bright qi realm, yet you're able to fight so fiercely with me, who is at the 4th level of the bright qi realm. Such a genius, even in the entire Snowgale Nation, is not common. Therefore, the flesh and blood of such geniuses must be the most delicious. Lu Jin laughed cruelly. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly, but his heart also became somewhat heavy. This was a battle that was 4 levels higher than him. Even if Tianyang was the reincarnation of the Tianji Sword Emperor, it would not be as easy as fighting Qinshan and Wu Meng. Perhaps this was the biggest battle he had ever fought since his rebirth. Brat, prepare to die. Blood qi palm. Lu Jin screamed, and his body suddenly disappeared from the spot. After breaking through to the 5th level of the bright qi realm, Lu Jin's speed was also much faster than before. Seeing this, the middle-aged man could not help but be shocked. Blood qi palm. This is Lu Jin's blood qi palm, a low-grade dark class martial art. In order to deal with a youth at the 1st level of the bright qi realm, he actually used the blood qi palm, low-grade dark class. At this time, Tianyang calmly caught the exclamation of the middle-aged man beside him. Although he had Lu Jin's information, it was clear that he did not know as much as the middle-aged man. Since it is a low-grade dark class, then I will have to deal with it properly. Flowing Cloud Sword Technique, Flowing Cloud Sword. Tianyang roared. On the flaming wind sword, light flashed, and 100 feet of qi sea churned endlessly. A majestic amount of true yuan condensed on the flaming wind sword, and the sword slashed out. This slash was many times stronger than the ordinary slash from before. The practice of martial arts was generally divided into 3 stages. The first stage was to comprehend and execute the technique. The second stage was now Tianyang, to execute the technique on a deeper level. The third stage was to comprehend the concept of martial arts. However, Tianyang did not need to use the concept of flowing cloud to deal with Lu Jin's blood qi palm. Kill! Lu Jin roared. His true yuan drove the majestic blood qi, and the surrounding air seemed to be filled with the thick smell of blood. The other 2 bright qi realm cultivators who had just arrived were also shocked. This is Bloodhand Lu Jin. The one fighting with him is actually a young man. Just as the 2 bright qi realm cultivators exclaimed, the flowing cloud sword and the blood qi palm collided. Boom! This attack, whether it was the flowing cloud sword or the blood qi palm, was much stronger than the previous attack. Coupled with Lu Jin's bright qi realm cultivation, everyone thought that Tianyang would be crushed by Lu Jin. However, the reality was completely different from what they had imagined. A surging wave of qi swept out, causing the 3 spectators to retreat a few steps. Tianyang and Lu Jin's expressions did not change, and they were still crazily fighting. One palm, another palm. With every palm, Lu Jin drove a large amount of blood qi towards Tianyang. One slash, another slash. Tianyang's expression was still calm. With every slash of his sword, Lu Jin's powerful blood qi palm was dissolved into nothingness. Seeing this scene, the 3 spectators were stunned. A youth at the Bright Chi realm could actually fight with the famous blood hand Lu Jin, who had reached the Bright Chi realm for a long time. This kid is too frightening. The middle-aged man could not help but murmur. If Tianyang did not die after this battle, after a few years of growth, it would be easy for him to kill Lu Jin. However, Lu Jin's face darkened when he saw that every single palm strike had no effect at all. Even after using the power of the 5th level of the Bright Chi realm, he was still unable to deal with this young man. Damn it, you forced me to do this. I originally planned to kill a few more people and use it when I reach the Great Success realm. Who would have thought that before I reach the Great Success realm, I would be forced to use it by you? If that's the case, then die. Lu Jin laughed maniacally. The 5 chi seas in his body were completely boiling. The blood chi that was countless times stronger than the blood chi palm covered the entire battlefield. In the next moment, Lu Jin's ferocious roar resounded throughout Yun City. Chapter 93. Baleful Blood Palm. Lu Jin roared. The true energy in his 5 chi seas boiled. Blood chi that was countless times stronger than the baleful blood palm was unleashed. A high-grade, profound class, evil martial skill that required a person's blood essence to practice, the Blood Fiend Palm. Lu Jin had killed countless people with this skill, and no one had been able to kill him. This proved the power of the baleful blood palm. Shit, it's Lu Jin's baleful blood palm. Run. The middle-aged man's pupils constricted. Without hesitation, he turned around and ran for his life. The 2 Clear Chi Realm 1st level martial artists did the same. The 4th level martial artist who had just reached the Clear Chi Realm also turned pale after seeing Lu Jin use the baleful blood palm. The baleful blood palm was known by almost all martial artists in the Arctic state. Once it was used, Lu Jin could even go toe-to-toe with a 6th level martial artist. Although this young man is talented, he actually forced Lu Jin to use the baleful blood palm. That's an upper-class, dark-class martial skill. Even a 6th level martial artist would have to take it seriously. That young man is only at the 1st level. That young man is dead meat. The middle-aged man's heart trembled, but he did not stop running. The bloody hand Lu Jin was too terrifying. At this moment, between the two of them, the surrounding trees were trembling and the rocks under their feet were cracking. Some of the trees even lost their vitality. Everything in the surroundings was covered by this terrifying blood chi. In the next moment, a total of 5 trees were all dead. This was not even used yet. As expected of the baleful blood palm, the famous dark class martial skill of the bloody hand Lu Jin. Just this move alone is probably as powerful as an upper-class dark-class martial skill. Tianyang looked at Lu Jin solemnly. The power of this move was terrifying, but Tianyang wasn't afraid at all. After all, he was the Tianji Sword Emperor. If he was afraid of a mere 5th-level martial artist, then how could he be called an emperor? Seeing this terrifying palm technique, Tianyang's eyes burned with fighting spirit. Flowing cloud sword technique. Tianyang roared furiously as his ultimate sea of chi began to boil. His aura soared to the maximum in an instant. The heavenly firmament sword shone brightly, and the wind flame sword, a mid-grade prized artifact, completely erupted. Tianyang's aura had reached the pinnacle. Legend has it that once the blood hand Lu Jin's blood fiend palm is unleashed, all life within a radius of 10 meters will cease to exist. Within 100 meters, not even a blade of grass will grow. Now that I look at it, that is indeed the case. Tianyang said indifferently. Hearing this, Lu Jin's face revealed a sinister smile. That's right. My baleful blood palm not only absorbs the power of one's blood essence to cultivate, but it also absorbs the vitality of all living things around it. This is a big secret. Even the Bright Chi Realm cultivator who died at my hands didn't know about it. Kid, as a Bright Chi Realm cultivator, you were able to force me to this extent. You should be honored in the underworld. Lu Jin said with a sinister smile. The true essence within his body continued to boil. It was obvious that in order to use this baleful blood palm, Lu Jin had to use his full strength, absorbing vitality to increase one's own strength. I have seen many such methods. Tianyang said calmly. As the Tianji Sword Emperor, what kind of strange methods had he not seen before? Your baleful blood palm is extraordinarily powerful against those in the bright chi realm. However, this method of absorbing vitality is too shallow, too useless, Tianyang said indifferently. Hearing this, Lu Jin's face became even more sinister. You are about to die, and you still dare to spout nonsense. You prepare to die, Lu Jin roared. The baleful blood palm was also prepared to the extreme. The power of the blood essence of the people he had devoured and the vitality he had just seized had completely fused together. The monstrous blood chi spun wildly like a huge whirlpool. In the end, it condensed into a huge blood-red palm. It exuded boundless baleful chi and boundless blood chi. Obviously, this huge blood-red palm was Lu Jin's most powerful technique, the baleful blood palm. Kid, give me your life. Lu Jin laughed maniacally. That huge blood-red palm also blasted towards Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression did not change. The flaming wind sword in his hand trembled slightly. It was not because of fear, but because of battle intent. Flowing cloud sword technique, flowing cloud concept. Tianyang roared angrily. The true yuan in his body surged wildly. In the end, it all condensed into the flaming wind sword in his hand. There were 3 major stages in cultivating martial techniques. Tianyang had only looked at the flowing cloud picture for a few minutes to completely comprehend the first and second stages. As for the third stage, after looking at it for 2 hours, he also comprehended a little. After Tianyang had used it many times, he also completely comprehended it. However, as the Sword Emperor, the supreme master of the Sword Dao, how could Tianyang be satisfied with an ordinary comprehension? In the concept of flowing clouds, Tianyang had fused some of his own understanding of the way of the sword. Although it wasn't much, it was enough to make this mid-grade, profound ranked martial skill experience a qualitative leap. Now, the flowing cloud sword technique had already reached the peerless profound rank. If the flowing cloud concept was completely unleashed, then its power would be comparable to half a step into the earth rank. Baleful blood palm, kill him for me. Martial spirit, blood soul, you go too. Flowing cloud concept / Lu Jin and Tianyang roared angrily at the same time. The rock under their feet completely shattered, and the baleful blood palm and flaming wind sword, which were integrated with the power of the blood soul martial spirit, also completely collided. With a flash of light, the flowing cloud concept directly chopped off one of the baleful blood palm's fingers. However, there was still an incomparably huge blood chi left to crush. This blood soul did not have any specific attack power. However, once it was integrated with the baleful blood palm, then the power of the baleful blood palm would skyrocket. Therefore, the attack power of the baleful blood palm had completely reached the level of the peerless profound rank. You're just a piece of trash at the bright chi realm. It's already good that you can fight with me to this extent. Now die for me. Kiki, with this level of talent, your flesh and blood must be extremely delicious. My baleful blood palm will definitely reach the great accomplishment stage. Lu Jin laughed strangely. In his opinion, after his baleful blood palm integrated with the blood soul, regardless of other aspects, just the attack power alone was completely comparable to the peerless profound rank. Although Tianyang was an inner disciple of the Soaring Cloud sect, he was only at the Bright Chi realm. How could he have the same level of peerless profound rank martial skill? In his opinion, Tianyang would definitely not be able to block his baleful blood palm. So that's how it is. It's just a pure blood chi condensed into a palm. Although it's condensed to a certain level, but it's still only at the peak of the first stage of cultivating martial skills. Without comprehending anything deeper, he only knows how to use martial skills to condense blood chi to attack. No wonder this guy killed so many people. He's gone astray. Facing the crushing power of the baleful blood palm, Tianyang's face was still calm. He released his soul power and immediately saw through the details of the baleful blood palm, as well as its weakness. If that's the case, then there's no need to say anything more. Tianyang said indifferently. The flaming wind sword in his hand shone brightly. A terrifying sword light shot out from the flaming wind sword and instantly pierced through the baleful blood palm. The baleful blood palm that had integrated with the power of the martial soul was completely destroyed. Following that, another fatal sword light shot out from the flaming wind sword and instantly arrived in front of Lu Jin. Under Lu Jin's incredulous gaze, his neck was broken. Blood spurted out. Lu Jin, the bloody hand who had slaughtered countless innocent people in the Arctic state for 5 years. Chapter 94. 1/. The famous Bright Chi realm cultivator, Lu Jin, who was known as the Blood Hand, died under Tianyang's slash just like that. That fatal slash left the 3 onlookers dumbfounded. This was an attack that a mere Bright Chi realm cultivator could unleash. With such an attack, even if it was against a clear Chi realm expert, it might be able to withstand it for a while. This kid's talent was a little too terrifying, wasn't it? Tianyang turned his head and looked at the 3 onlookers. He did not say anything and only looked at them with an indifferent gaze. However, when faced with this gaze, the 3 onlookers felt a chill run down their spines. They did not stay any longer and immediately ran away. This kid was too scary. That gaze seemed to contain endless killing intent. If they stayed any longer, they could not be sure what the kid would do to them. After the 3 onlookers left, Tianyang turned his head and reached out to grab Lu Jin's dimensional bag and head. He could not be bothered with the corpse and left. After putting Lu Jin's head into Lu Jin's dimensional bag, Tianyang sighed and raised his head to look at the blue sky. You can all rest in peace now. After that, Tianyang did not stay any longer and walked towards a certain direction in Yun City. This time, Tianyang did not plan to return immediately after completing his mission in the Soaring Cloud sect. Yun City was one of the few major cities in the Arctic state. No matter what, he wanted to take a good look around. Yun City, in a hotel. Tianyang sat cross-legged in a room that he had spent 300 gold coins to exchange for. He looked at the dimensional bag in his hand in amazement. This dimensional bag originally belonged to Lu Jin. Lu Jin had branded it with his soul imprint. However, after Lu Jin's death, the soul imprint could not continue to exist and disappeared. Tianyang easily refined the dimensional bag and took control of it. Who would have thought that a mere Bright Chi realm cultivator like Lu Jin could own a complete dimensional bag? Tianyang said with some surprise. After all, dimensional treasures were very rare. Lu Jin was only at the Bright Chi realm, and yet he could own a real dimensional treasure. This was not a small opportunity. The dimensional bag that I used before was not a real dimensional bag, but it was not far from exploding. After all, it was just an inferior imitation of a dimensional treasure. It was not bad that it could be used so many times. Tianyang laughed lightly. Then he took out the dimensional bag from his waist and used some small tricks to combine the 2 dimensional bags into one. After that, Tianyang carefully counted the spoils of the battle. This Lu Jin sure has a rich collection. He already has a total of 1,600 spiritual stones, which is double of what I had before. They were surprised to see the treasures in Lu Jin's dimensional bag. In the Heavenly Sun sect, these spirit stones were naturally low-grade spirit stones. However, Lu Jin, who was at the 5th level of the Radiant Chi realm, possessed 1,600 spirit stones. It seems that the reason why Lu Jin improved so quickly was not only because of the evil blood palm, but also because of these spiritual stones. Tianyang said in a low voice. Then, he continued to check Lu Jin's other possessions. After all, Tianyang was a fighter at the peak of the Heaven Ascension realm. His soul strength was very strong. Although he could not use more than 1/10,000th of it, he still finished counting in a few minutes. In Lu Jin's dimensional bag, Tianyang did not care for most of the items. Only a small portion was needed by Tianyang. For example, 1,600 spiritual stones, a few bottles of energy recovery pills, and an essential ingredient for refining the vitality refining pill. The second most important ingredient besides the crimson demon Ganoderma was the primary green vine. The primary green vine was not refined into a pill. If taken directly, it could increase the chances of a fighter at the peak of the ninth stage of the bright chi realm breaking through to the vitality refining realm. It was very precious. Tianyang did not expect Lu Jin, who was at the fifth stage of the bright chi realm, to be able to find such an item. To refine the vitality refining pill, the three main ingredients and the rest of the auxiliary ingredients are easy to find. But the three main ingredients are a bit difficult to find. However, I already have two of the three main ingredients. As for the spiritual flower fruit, I should be able to find it before I break through to the vitality refining realm, Tianyang said in a low voice. Then he separated the rest of the items. The rest were things that Tianyang did not need. For example, the blood palm, blood chi palm, mountain breaking palm, and other martial skills. As for martial skills, Tianyang did not need them at all. The collection of martial skills in his head was enough to make all the martial artists in Heaven Ascension Continent go crazy. Nine-tempered dragon body, sky extreme sword art. He already had heaven-ranked martial skills. Why would he still need to cultivate Lu Jin's unorthodox martial skills? Among all of Lu Jin's martial skills, only the blood palm was able to move him. However, it was not because of its power, but because of its cultivation method. It actually needs to devour human flesh to cultivate. This cultivation method is also very evil. Well, this kind of thing should not exist in this world. I might as well destroy it, Tianyang said softly. Then he used his soul energy to penetrate the blood palm. With a slight vibration, the precious high-level profound martial skill scroll turned into a pile of powder. The rest of the items were not much. Although the blood chi palm looked similar to the blood palm, it only used one's blood chi to fight. For a cultivator of the body, refining realm, it was very useful. If he returned to the soaring cloud sect, he might be able to exchange it for some spiritual stones. After checking all the items, Tianyang could not help but smile. Although most Tianyang had no use for them, they were still very valuable. If Tianyang were to exchange it with the soaring cloud sect, it would be worth at least 2,000 spiritual stones. Of the 2,000 spiritual stones, Tianyang had 2,400 spiritual stones, including the 1,500 spiritual stones that he would get from completing the mission. Tianyang had more spiritual stones than most cultivators of the 7th or 8th stage of the Radiant Chi realm. In that case, he would be able to reach at least the 5th level of the Clear Chi realm without having to worry about the problem of spirit stones. However, since I'm already in such a big city like Cloud City, I can also ponder over the final main ingredient of the energy conversion pill. Usually, a big city like this has a free market area. In this kind of place, the possibility of picking up scraps is also the highest. Stroking his chin, the corners of Tianyang's mouth curled into a smile. Chapter 95. Cloud City was one of the few large cities in the Snowgale Nation, so it naturally had a free display district. However, the free display district was usually filled with all sorts of people. The items inside might be good, but they might not even be worth as much as a small pebble on the side of the road. Usually, the possibility of picking up a treasure in such a place was the highest. Some people used a few gold coins to buy a profound rank martial technique. There are also people who used tens of thousands of spirit stones to buy a piece of trash. The reason for such a situation was that the free display district was usually filled with items that even the owners themselves couldn't see through. As the Tianji Sword Emperor, Tianyang's soul power was so strong that there were probably very few people in the entire Sky Continent who could compare to him. Wouldn't the items that others couldn't see through be exposed under the soul power of a peak ascension state? After obtaining some information from the inn, Tianyang didn't stay any longer and walked towards the center of Cloud City. That was the place he wanted to go, the free display district. This treasure hall is really bustling with noise and excitement. Looking at the entrance of the free display district, the bustling crowd surprised Tianyang. He didn't expect that a free display district in an ordinary city could attract so many people. Every city's free display district had its own name, and Cloud City's was called the Treasure Hall. Of course, it was unknown how many items there were in the treasure hall. Sighing, Tianyang walked in without hesitation. One had to pay 100 gold coins to enter the treasure hall. It wasn't too much, but it wasn't too little either. To the current Tianyang, he didn't even need to blink an eye to hand it over. This was also one of Cloud City's profit-making methods. After all, the consumption required to maintain such a large treasure hall was naturally astonishing. It's called a treasure hall, but in reality, it doesn't live up to its name. With a glance, it's all trash. He casually walked around the treasure hall. There was only one floor here, and there weren't any rooms or the like. The spacious hall was filled with stalls, and there were empty paths. As far as the eye could see, there were at least a few hundred vendors in the treasure hall. Each vendor sold at least a few hundred items. The number of items stored in the treasure hall was terrifying. However, even though the number was terrifying, there wasn't a single item that could be considered a treasure among them. Sighing softly, Tianyang didn't have much hope for the treasure hall. After all, the items here couldn't be seen through by their owners. If they couldn't see through them, then it was very likely that they were fakes. Fine, there are at least 100,000 items here. I don't believe that there isn't a single item that can attract my attention, Tianyang muttered to himself. Then, he walked along with the crowd. After a few minutes, Tianyang also found a few good things. One of them was a peerless, profound-ranked martial skill that could be said to be half a step into the earth-ranked. It was hidden in a tattered piece of wood. Unfortunately, it wasn't a sword move. Tianyang naturally didn't need it. As a sword emperor, the thing that he didn't lack the least was sword moves. Even if there was something that could be picked up, Tianyang couldn't be bothered to pick it up. The other item was a rarer one. It was a flower called the blood spirit flower. It was an important ingredient to refine a second-grade peak elixir, the bloodburst elixir. This elixir could greatly increase one's strength in a short period of time. However, the bloodburst elixir required a large amount of the user's chi and blood. Moreover, it would also cause a certain impact on one's potential. Tianyang couldn't be bothered to use such an item. Moreover, although others couldn't tell what the blood spirit flower was, they could tell that it was strange from its aura. According to Tianyang's estimation, he couldn't get it without spending a few hundred spirit stones. This treasure hall is indeed a mixed bag of good and bad people. I've seen so many free display areas in my previous life, but this treasure hall in Yun City has the most fish. Tianyang mumbled to himself. He was able to find a few good items. Although he didn't buy them, he didn't lose out by spending 100 gold coins. However, he was almost done looking at the items here. Turning around, just as he was about to leave, Tianyang's spiritual strength suddenly moved slightly. Tianyang's figure suddenly stopped, and his eyes narrowed. What is that? Something that could make the Tianji Sword Emperor's spiritual strength move like this was definitely not an ordinary item. Turning around, he increased his speed. Soon, Tianyang arrived in front of the item that caused his spiritual strength to move. However, this was a corner that almost no one cared about. This stall was also very strange. The items on it were either worth as much as a profound rank martial skill or were cheaper than the weeds on the side of the road. The item that caused Tianyang's spiritual strength to move was in this pile of items. It was an inconspicuous item, a black stone slab. Kid. At this moment, the stall owner sitting behind the stall suddenly spoke. Tianyang raised his head and suddenly realized that this stall owner was actually an old man who was dressed sloppily. I refuse to bargain with the items here. If you want to bargain, you have to do it more than 3 times, and I will chase you out. These items only have one price, and that is 1,000 spirit stones. Whether it is this stone or that long sword, they're all 1,000 spirit stones. The old man said in a hoarse voice. Hearing this, Tianyang's interest was piqued. No matter what it was all 1,000 spirit stones. One had to know that 1,000 spirit stones was an extremely large amount for an enlightened Qi realm cultivator. If the size of the sea of Qi wasn't very large, then 1,000 spirit stones could last him until he reached the 9th level of the enlightened Qi realm. For an enlightened Qi realm cultivator, 1,000 spirit stones was definitely a large sum. Your items are also worth 1,000 spirit stones? Tianyang chuckled. When doing business, regardless of whether it was real or fake, he had to test it out. Although this old man hid his strength well, under the probing of his spiritual strength, his strength could be seen at a glance. The peak of the 9th level of the enlightened Qi realm a martial artist who was only a step away from the transformed Qi realm. This kind of cultivator could be considered a top expert in Yin City. In the Yang clan, he would definitely be a guest of honor. It was unknown why he dressed up like this to set up a stall here. If you want to buy. 1,000 spirit stones. No bargaining allowed. The old man's voice was flat, as if he couldn't be bothered to talk to Tianyang. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled. He reached out and picked up the black stone slab that had caused his spiritual strength to stir. I want this black stone slab. 1,000 spirit stones. Here you go. Tianyang chuckled. Something that could cause his spiritual strength to stir was definitely not something that could be measured by 1,000 spirit stones. Seeing the bag that Tianyang threw out, the old man was shocked. At this moment, an arrogant voice came from the side. Chapter 96. This young master wants it. An arrogant voice came from the side. In the next moment, a burst of true yuan shot towards Tianyang. Seeing this, Heavenly Sun coldly snorted. Too lazy to even move, he released his true essence, condensing it into a true essence beam of light of uniform thickness, which completely shattered the true essence beam. In the next moment, the true yuan continued to shoot towards the person who attacked. How dare you? At this moment, an old voice came from the side. The true yuan of a clear Qi realm level 6 cultivator directly shattered Tianyang's attack. Tianyang's eyes flashed coldly. He turned his head and looked at the people who came. 2 people. One of them looked to be in his late teens. His cultivation level was not bad, at clear Qi realm level 4. The other person was a middle-aged man who looked a little old. His cultivation level was much weaker, only at the peak of the 6th level of the bright Qi realm. I said, this stone slab, this young master wants it. You dare to fight back? The young man's eyes flashed with anger. With his status, when had anyone dared to go against him in Yin City? In the past, when he wanted to buy something, he didn't even need to pay for it, as someone would obediently deliver it to him. Today, he had nothing better to do and came to the treasure hall to take a stroll. It wasn't easy for him to find something good. Someone actually dared to go against him, not handing over the black slate. Who are you? Tianyang sneered. You said I would hand it over? Then why don't you go *CK yourself? How dare you? You dare to speak so arrogantly in front of the second young master of the Yang clan? You must be tired of living. Before the young man could speak, the middle-aged man next to him snorted. Which clan are you from? Aren't you afraid of bringing disaster to your family by saying such words? Hearing this, Tianyang's expression did not change. He chuckled and ignored the 2 people. He handed over 1,000 spiritual stones to the old man. Here are 1,000 spiritual stones. Count them. No need. I believe in your character. Someone who dares to offend the second young master of the Yang clan, Yang Kuan, will not be stingy with a mere 1,000 spiritual stones. The old man said. Hearing this, the young man next to him reacted. His face suddenly became angry. He was the second young master of the Yang clan. He had been pampered since he was young. Why had he ever been humiliated like this? Kid, this old man already said that I am the second young master of the Yang clan, Yang Kuan. Now, why aren't you obediently handing over the black slate? Yang Kuan's voice was ferocious. Hearing this, Tianyang didn't even bother to lift his eyelids. Tianyang had seen too many people like this who were arrogant and despotic just because their family had some power. Moreover, with the power of the Yang clan's second young master, Yang Kuan, to be arrogant. In terms of strength, the Tian family wasn't much worse than the Yang family. In terms of identity, Tianyang was the son of the Tian family's patriarch. The young master of the Tian family was completely above Yang Kuan. Seeing that Tianyang did not even bother to say a word, Yang Kuan was even angrier. He turned his head and shouted, Old man, how much did this guy pay? I will pay double. Give it to me. The transaction just now was completed. The black slate now belongs to this young man. I have no right to deal with it. The old man said indifferently. Hearing this, Yang Kuan's expression turned even uglier. He didn't expect that this sloppy old man would actually dare to not give him face. At this time, Tianyang finally found a treasure that caught his attention. He did not want to stay in the treasure hall any longer. Just as he was about to leave, Yang Kuen's face suddenly became gloomy. You dare to run after stealing from me? Kid die. Yang Kuen shouted angrily. His fourth-level clear Qi realm Qi surged. He clenched his right fist, and a faint golden light flashed. This is the Yang clan's mystic low-class fist technique, Golden Light Fist. I did not expect the young master to use such a technique to deal with a guy of unknown cultivation level. Looking at the golden light in Yang Kuen's hand, the middle-aged man was shocked. The next moment, Yang Kuen moved. In a flash, Yang Kuen appeared behind Tianyang. His golden fist smashed towards Tianyang's back. Golden Light Fist, Yang Kuen roared. Hearing this, Tianyang's face suddenly became unhappy. It was good enough that he did not find trouble with Yang Kuen. This guy, how dare you take advantage of him? Mystic low-class martial technique. You are only at the first stage of martial technique cultivation. How dare you be so arrogant? Get lost, Tianyang shouted coldly. His clear Qi realm Qi surged, and in the next moment he used Tongming Fist. Bang! 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 Yang Kuen's golden light was completely shattered by this punch. In the next moment, the three hidden forces were also forced into Yang Kuen's body by Tianyang. Before Yang Kuen could react, Tianyang hooked his finger and detonated the three hidden forces. Puff! Yang Kuen spat out a mouthful of blood. His face suddenly turned pale, and his legs became weak. He almost lost his balance. Staring at Tianyang's back, Yang Kuen's face became extremely gloomy. Who is this guy? How dare he injure me in Yin City? Uncle Xiao, go investigate. Find out everything about this brat. I want him to suffer the consequences. That black slate will be mine sooner or later. Yang Kuen roared furiously. Hearing this, the middle-aged man called Uncle Xiao's face turned cold. He could see that this time, the Yang clan's second young master was really angry. How dare he provoke the second young master? I don't know how this guy's brain works. He deserves this outcome. The middle-aged man snorted coldly in his heart. Then, he helped Yang Kuen up and left without looking back. His family's second young master, who was at the fourth level of the Bright Qi realm, had used a low-grade profound class martial skill, the Golden Light Fist, to defeat a first-level Bright Qi realm martial artist with just one punch. There were many eyes in the treasure hall. Even though this was only a corner, there were probably many people who saw the situation here. It wouldn't be long before the news of Yang Kuen being defeated by a clear Qi realm first young master with one punch spread. This way, Yang Kuen would lose face. For the arrogant second young master of the Yang clan, this kind of thing was definitely not tolerated. Therefore, Yang Kuen was so angry that he wanted to kill Tianyang. After leaving the treasure hall, Tianyang quickly forgot about the matter of the Yang clan's second young master. To the Tianji Sword Emperor, that kind of person was just a clown. There was no need for Tianyang to pay attention to him. At this moment, he was thinking about the black slate that he had just spent 1,000 spiritual stones to get his hands on. This black slate actually has a seal. Looking at the situation, it was at least done by someone in the Dao Fire realm. A small slate actually caused someone in the Dao Fire realm to put a seal on it. It seems that this slate has a big secret. Tianyang laughed lightly. Then he put the slate into his space bag and came to a loft. Chapter 97. The Elixir Pavilion was the biggest place to buy elixirs in Yin City. Although the flow of people here paled in comparison to the treasure hall, everyone who entered and exited here had a decent cultivation base. Tianyang felt a little more confident when he saw this. As the biggest place to buy elixirs in Yin City, the Elixir Pavilion should have the spirit flower fruit. The three main ingredients needed to refine the vitality dissipation pill were the primal green vine, the crimson demon Ganoderma, and the spirit flower fruit. Tianyang already had the primal green vine and the crimson demon Ganoderma. The only one he did not have was the spirit flower fruit. The spirit flower fruit gathered the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Unlike spirit stones, the spirit flower fruit gathered the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, but it had its own special attributes. Even if it was not refined into an elixir, the spirit flower fruit could purify one's inner yuan. The purity of one's inner yuan and the size of one's qi were two important factors that affected the quality of a cultivator's inner yuan. The purification of one's inner yuan meant that the purity of one's inner yuan would increase. If one's inner yuan was pure, then even if one's qi was not open enough, one's strength would still increase to a certain extent. Therefore, the spirit flower fruit was the most valuable of the three main ingredients for the vitality dissipation pill. After standing outside for a while, Tianyang did not hesitate and walked in directly. There were not many people in the elixir pavilion. After all, elixirs were extremely precious. Even the ingredients were not inferior. Most people would not come here. "Hello, may I know what you would like to buy?" At this moment, a pleasant voice came from his side. Tianyang turned around and saw a pretty girl standing next to him with a smile. Hearing that, Tianyang nodded. "I wonder if I can buy ingredients here." "Buy ingredients?" Hearing that, the pretty girl was stunned. Most cultivators did not need to buy ingredients. After all, they only bought elixirs. Buying ingredients was obviously for refining elixirs. However, this young man looked like he was only 15 years old. A 15-year-old alchemist? "You're an alchemist?" The pretty girl exclaimed in shock. Tianyang nodded. "Since we could buy medicinal herbs here, I wonder if you guys have one." As for his identity as an alchemist, although Tianyang wouldn't publicize it, he wouldn't deliberately hide it either. In any case, having an additional identity was beneficial to Tianyang. Perhaps in the future, if someone saw his identity as an alchemist, it would save him a lot of trouble. "What medicinal herb?" The pretty girl was still very professional. Although she was shocked by Tianyang's identity as an alchemist, she immediately adjusted herself and asked. "Spirit flower fruit," Tianyang said. Hearing this, the pretty girl was stunned. "Spirit flower fruit? What kind of medicinal herb is that?" Tianyang was stunned when he heard that. The spiritual flower fruit was an extremely important medicinal herb for cultivators. How could this young girl not know about it? "Lil Jiao, come here." That guy is obviously trying to please the crowd. He even said that he is an alchemist and that the spiritual flower fruit can only be used to concoct Tier 2 pills. Look at him. How can he be a Tier 2 alchemist? Don't bother about him. Besides, how can this poor kid afford the spiritual flower fruit? At this moment, a shrill voice sounded from the side. It was a middle-aged woman who looked at Tianyang with disdain and ridiculed him. Hearing this, the pretty girl who was called Lil Jiao showed a trace of embarrassment on her face. He was a guest, and no matter what, she shouldn't be rude. However, this middle-aged woman's status in the elixir pavilion was not ordinary. For a moment, the pretty girl didn't know what to do. How can that be? After being ridiculed by the middle-aged woman, Tianyang was angered. Even a person made of clay had 3 points of anger. Moreover, who was Tianyang? He was the most powerful person in the mainland 10,000 years ago, the Tianji Sword Emperor. If he didn't say anything when someone ridiculed him, then what was the point of being a Sword Emperor? He might as well be a Turtle Emperor. I won't argue with you. There must be someone concocting pills behind your elixir pavilion, Tianyang said coldly. Hearing this, the middle-aged woman was stunned. How did this kid know? However, she immediately regained her composure. So what if that's the case? Then do you know that this guy concocted the wrong ingredients when concocting the crouching tiger pill? The furnace will explode in 3 minutes at the latest. Tianyang sneered. Hearing this, the middle-aged woman was stunned. Then, her face darkened. Who are you? How dare you curse us alchemists to explode our furnaces? Kid, you're the first one who dares to cause trouble in my elixir pavilion. Men, blast him away from me. Boom! At this moment, there was a sudden explosion behind the elixir pavilion. A round cauldron lid flew up into the sky and smashed through the ceiling of the elixir pavilion, landing on the floor of the elixir pavilion. Coincidentally, it landed between Tianyang and the middle-aged woman. Seeing this scene, the people who were selecting medicinal pills at the side were all stupefied. Who exactly was this young man? They knew the alchemist of the elixir pavilion. He was one of the few grade 2 alchemists in Yin City. The news of him concocting the crouching tiger pill had been heard by some of the higher-ups in Yin City. The crouching tiger pill was a type of body tempering pill. It might be too strong for a body-tempering realm cultivator, but for a chi-illuminating realm cultivator, it was an invaluable pill. Once the pill was successfully concocted, the alchemist of the Elixir Pavilion would definitely become famous. After all, the Crouching Tiger pill was a powerful pill even 10,000 years ago. Looking at the expressions of the people in the Elixir Pavilion, the alchemist must have been successful in concocting the Crouching Tiger pill. Why did the furnace explode in less than half a minute? Where's my cauldron lid? Where's my cauldron lid? At this moment, a disheveled old man rushed out from the back door of the Elixir Pavilion. He ignored the people around him and rushed to the cauldron lid on the floor. So it's here. But I was in the middle of concocting. Why did the cauldron explode? The disheveled old man mumbled as he picked up the cauldron lid. At this moment, the middle-aged woman seemed to have thought of something and immediately said, "Alchemist Jiang, it's all this kid's fault. He cursed you that your cauldron was going to explode." The middle-aged woman shrieked. Hearing this, the disheveled old man was stunned. Then, he turned to look at Tianyang with a glimmer of light in his eyes. Go F***CK yourself. Tianyang chuckled. He could not be bothered with the chattering middle-aged woman and turned his attention to the disheveled old man. Based on the smell, if I'm not wrong, you concocted the Crouching Tiger pill, right? The most important thing for a level 2 body tempering pill is the balance of the ingredients. After all, the ingredients for the Crouching Tiger pill are extremely potent. However, you obviously used the wrong ingredients. As the main ingredient for the Crouching Tiger pill, the tiger bone grass is extremely valuable. However, it is very similar to another ingredient, the wolf bone grass. The difference between the tiger bone grass and the wolf bone grass is extremely small. However, their effects are worlds apart. Once the wrong ingredient is used, the cauldron will definitely explode. Tianyang spoke with assurance. Hearing this, the disheveled old man was stunned. His eyes glimmered. He did not immediately find fault with Tianyang. Instead, he quieted down. Even a level 2 alchemist who had just exploded his cauldron was convinced. Seeing this, everyone was stunned. The most obvious difference is that on the veins of the tiger bone grass, there is an inconspicuous silver line. This silver line represents the power essence of the tiger bone grass, but there is none on the wolf bone grass. Once the tiger bone grass is mistaken for the wolf bone grass in the process of concocting the Crouching Tiger pill, then the energy in the cauldron will definitely not be balanced. The cauldron will definitely explode. Tianyang said calmly. Hearing this, the disheveled old man was stunned. Then, he started to dance around as if he had gone mad. Yes, I was wondering why there was something wrong with the tiger bone grass. So that's why. So I mistook it for the wolf bone grass. Seeing the sloppy old man's actions of dancing with joy, the surrounding people were all stupefied. Chapter 98. So that's how it is. That's how it is. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what to say as they looked at the sloppy old man who had completely disregarded his status as a second-grade pill refiner. It turned out that the middle-aged woman in charge had made things difficult for this young man because of a medicinal ingredient. In the next moment, the sloppy old man's pill refining situation was exactly as the young man had said. Just like that, the middle-aged woman had accused Tianyang of being a jinx. Everyone present scoffed at things like jinx and curses. Only the curses of the western region of the continent would be effective. However, everyone present was only an ordinary cultivator in the aura illuminating state. They had probably never even left the Arctic state, let alone know about the evil curses of the western region of the continent. Young man, no, young friend, what's your name? You actually know such a secret. After dancing for a while, the sloppy old man finally stopped and ran excitedly to Tianyang. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled slightly and glanced at the middle-aged woman. The middle-aged woman felt Tianyang's gaze, and her face suddenly turned pale. Previously, it was precisely because of the medicinal herbs that Tianyang had asked for that he had been unkind and even mocking him. Now, the facts had proven that Tianyang was truly a person with cultivation in the Tao of alchemy. Perhaps he really was a pill refiner. She had offended a pill refiner, especially one who had just given pointers to their pill pavilion's pill master Jiang. Naturally, the middle-aged woman had never thought of this situation. I wanted to say something, but it's obvious that this pill pavilion is too big to accommodate a lowly person like me. Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, the sloppy old man's expression froze and darkened. Although he was obsessed with pill refinement, he was not stupid. Although Tianyang's words were vague, he had still noticed it. Furthermore, the sloppy old man immediately noticed where Tianyang's gaze had swept and saw the middle-aged woman. That fellow surnamed Hua is very powerful. Even his cousin dares to be so arrogant. He even dares to humiliate a little friend with such a cultivation in the Tao of alchemy? The sloppy old man's voice was ice-cold. Hearing that, the middle-aged woman's expression changed greatly. It was obvious that the sloppy old man wasn't willing to let them off so easily. The sloppy old man's words were not false. If it was only the difference between the tiger bone grass and the wolf bone grass, the sloppy old man might not have paid much attention to Tianyang. However, he had never said that he was refining the subduing tiger pill. The tiger subduing elixir was a grade 2 peak elixir and was extremely difficult to refine. Even in the entire Yin City, only a small number of people knew about it. This young man looked unfamiliar. He was obviously not from Cloud City. That meant that he had sensed that he was concocting the hidden tiger pill. Not only that, but he had also discovered the mistake he had made while concocting the subduing tiger pill and gave him some pointers. This level of cultivation in the Tao of alchemy was unfathomable. For a character of this level, the medicinal pill pavilion couldn't wait to befriend him, let alone offend him. And this middle-aged woman was so blind that she had offended this young man. The middle-aged woman was afraid. Alchemist Zhang's status in the medicinal pill pavilion was extremely high. He was almost on the same level as the pavilion leader. If someone like him wanted to punish her, even the pavilion leader wouldn't be able to change anything. After all, this matter was her fault to begin with. Customers were extremely important to the medicinal pill pavilion. However, the middle-aged woman didn't distinguish between right and wrong. Just because Tianyang was too young, she had directly mocked him. This kind of person didn't deserve to manage the medicinal pill pavilion. That damned Yang Kuan. If not for him, how would I have offended such an accomplished young man in the Tao of alchemy? No matter how much Yang Kuan compensates me, I will definitely leave a bad impression in Alchemist Zhang's heart. Can Yang Kuan afford to pay for this kind of loss? The middle-aged woman was extremely angry at this moment. However, no matter how angry she was, she didn't dare to vent her anger on Alchemist Jiang and Tianyang. The reason why this middle-aged woman had directly mocked Tianyang the moment she appeared wasn't because she was mean to this extent. It was because Yang Kuan, the second young master of the Yang family, had entrusted her to do so. She had only said a few words to humiliate Tianyang, and she could get a reward of 100 spirit stones. Naturally, the middle-aged woman accepted it without hesitation. However, the middle-aged woman had never expected Tianyang's Tao of alchemy to be so profound. The mistake that Alchemist Jiang had made when refining the Crouching Tiger pill was immediately discovered by Tianyang and pointed it out. You don't want to speak, right? Fine, I will report this matter to the pavilion leader as it is. Alchemist Jiang, who was also the sloppy old man, snorted coldly. Then, he turned his head and said amiably to Tianyang, "May I know your name and where you are from? I am an inner disciple of the Soaring Cloud sect. My surname is Tian, and my name is Yang. If you need my guidance in the future, you could go to the Soaring Cloud sect. I will not leave the Soaring Cloud sect in a short period of time," Tianyang said. Alchemist Jiang nodded his head heavily when he heard this. It was as if Tianyang was a supreme alchemist, and his words were all words of wisdom. The other onlookers were completely stunned. Who is Alchemist Jiang? This young man actually asked Alchemist Jiang to go to the Soaring Cloud sect personally to seek guidance. What shocked them the most was that Alchemist Jiang actually agreed to it. Yes. Alchemist Jiang smiled and nodded his head. He heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. To be able to have such Tao of alchemy at such a young age This young man's talent was definitely limitless. In the future, even if he couldn't become a supreme alchemist, it would be easy for him to destroy an elixir pavilion. I heard that you are here to buy herbs. May I know what kind of herbs you are buying? No matter what kind of herbs they are, I will cover the cost. Alchemist Jiang said generously. Tianyang's eyes flickered when he heard this, and the corner of his mouth curled up into a casual smile. It seemed that Alchemist Jiang wasn't young, but he was quite clever. He must have guessed Lin Yun's Tao of alchemy correctly. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so courteous. However, Tianyang's current state was still insufficient to buy all the herbs for the soul-dissolving pill. All right, I won't stand on ceremony then. One spiritual flower fruit, one 50-year-old snake swallowing flower, one 30-year-old green fruit. Tianyang had a calm smile on his face as he continuously spat out the names of the herbs. The middle-aged woman, who was in charge of purchasing the elixir, had an extremely ugly expression on her face. However, no matter how ugly her expression was, she knew that she would definitely suffer this loss. When the pavilion master returned in the future, this debt would definitely be on her. Tianyang returned to the inn with a faint smile on his face after packing up the herbs in the space bag. This trip to Cloud City had been fruitful. Now that he had solved the problem, it was time to return. However, before that, Tianyang still needed to ponder over the mysterious black stone slab that he had exchanged for 1,000 spiritual stones in the treasure hall. I'm not in a hurry to refine the soul-dissolving pill. I'm currently only at the peak of the first level of the clear chi realm. Although I can prepare to break through to the second level of the clear chi realm after returning to the sect, I'm still far from the soul-dissolving realm. However, I can break the restriction on the black stone slab right now. Tianyang chuckled. Subsequently, his soul energy, which was at the peak of the heavenly ascension realm, was injected into the black stone slab. Following that, the restriction on the black stone slab exploded with a soft sound. If one were to use true origin to break the restriction, one would need to be at least at the 5th or 6th level of the soul-dissolving realm. However, it was much easier to use soul energy. Tianyang had a faint smile on his face. With a wave of his hand, he removed the dust from the restriction and injected his soul energy into the black stone slab. This black stone slab is actually made of black crystal stone. It seems that there's at least an earth rank martial skill inside. Recognizing the material of the black stone slab at a glance, Tianyang began to have some expectations of what was recorded on the black stone slab. In the next moment, Tianyang saw the first 4 words. Chapter 99. Secret Air Treading Technique. The moment his soul power entered the black slate, these 4 words rushed into Tianyang's mind. Then a huge amount of complicated information poured into Tianyang's soul. However, it was blocked by Tianyang's own soul power and could not go any deeper. Tianyang could only laugh bitterly. His soul power was too strong. The information in the black crystal slate could at least break through the soul power of a primordial transformation realm cultivator. In the end, it could only transmit its name. The rest of the cultivation methods were all blocked by Tianyang's own instinctive defense. Secret air treading technique? Treading on the air is something that any Tao Fire Realm cultivator can do. Some powerful primordial transformation realm cultivators can do it too. I wonder what the secret of this air treading technique is. Tianyang raised his eyebrows. From the 4 words, Tianyang could already read some information. Then, Tianyang removed the instinctive defense of his soul and read the huge amount of complicated information. 15 minutes later, after Tianyang finished browsing through all the information, a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. The void-treading secret technique was actually a secret technique. Soaring in the 9 heavens, treading on the air. This air-treading technique is actually so powerful. Tianyang was shocked. This air-treading technique could actually allow a radiant chi realm cultivator to fly into the sky. Treading on the air was the privilege of a Tao Fire Realm cultivator. After all, if one's cultivation did not reach a certain level, one would not have enough true essence to fly. In addition, only a Tao Fire Realm cultivator could comprehend some methods to let oneself leave the ground and soar into the sky. Otherwise, even if one had enough true essence, one would not be able to do this. However, this air-treading technique broke this iron law. It allowed a radiant chi realm cultivator to fly into the sky. This void-treading secret technique is truly miraculous. If I cultivate according to its instructions, I might be able to tread on the air with my current cultivation. Tianyang clicked his tongue in wonder. In his previous life, although he had seen countless strange martial arts and mysterious secret techniques in the carefree continent, he had never seen a secret technique like the air-stepping secret technique, which broke the iron law of the continent's cultivation world. If he had seen it before, he wouldn't be so surprised. Then, Tianyang closed his eyes and recalled the cultivation method of the secret skill. The void-treading secret technique was divided into 3 layers. The first layer could be cultivated by those in the clear chi realm. If one reached the great completion realm, then with the help of the void-treading secret technique, those in the clear chi realm could soar into the sky. The second layer could only be cultivated by those in the primordial transformation realm. At this moment, the air-stepping secret technique was not as simple as allowing a cultivator to fly into the sky. Instead, it allowed him to soar into the sky and increase his speed. Tianyang had mentioned that those in the primordial transformation realm could also walk in the air. That was based on the fact that the primordial transformation realm cultivator's flying speed was extremely slow. Once he sped up, without the unique magic of the Tao fire realm, he could forget about flying down. However, the second layer of the air-stepping secret technique could not only allow those in the primordial transformation realm to fly, but their speed was even faster than those who had just entered the Tao fire realm. The third layer could only be cultivated by those in the Tao fire realm and above. It could allow one's flying speed to soar to the extreme in a short period of time. This extreme could allow a Tao fire realm cultivator's flying speed to soar by 50%. 50% was half. A Tao fire realm cultivator with a 50% increase in speed would probably be faster than an ordinary peak Tao fire realm cultivator. This air-stepping secret technique is truly miraculous. Tianyang's eyes shone with a dazzling light as he exclaimed in surprise. He had originally thought that the air-stepping secret technique was just an ordinary secret technique that allowed those in the clear chi realm to fly in the air. Although it was rare, it was not very powerful for the Tianji Sword Emperor. After all, the flying diagram was fast. He had cultivated the dragon's subduing steps, so even if he walked on the ground, his speed would not be much slower than flying. However, if he was chasing someone or being chased, and if that person had a secret treasure that could allow his speed to soar, the dragon's subduing steps would not be enough. The air-stepping secret technique just happened to satisfy Tianyang's needs. Not bad at all. This trip to Cloud City was a good one. Tianyang grinned. Then he took out some medicinal herbs from his space bag and his elixir cauldron. He started a fire to refine the elixir. He was not refining the energy dissipation elixir. He did not need it now. However, when he returned, Ling Yuhan's little disciple would not be far from the clear chi realm. Opening the chi sea was the most important thing in the path of martial arts. The elixir that he refined would be able to assist Ling Yuhan in opening the chi sea. 3 days later, Tianyang rode a horseback to the soaring cloud sect alone. He passed by the outer sect and entered the inner sect under the complicated and envious gazes of the outer sect disciples. Once, Tianyang was one of the 3 great wastes of the outer sect that they despised. Now, Tianyang had become an inner sect senior that they could only look up to but could not reach. The changes in the world were really unpredictable. After returning to the inner sect, Tianyang did not go straight to Ling Yuhan. Instead, he went straight to the mission hall. Mission submission. As he walked into the mission hall, Tianyang ignored the surprised gazes of the crowd. He walked straight to the counter and spoke to the disciple who was in charge of handling the mission submission procedures. At this time, the disciple beside him finally reacted. Didn't he accept a mission to kill Lu Jin a few days ago? Why is he back so soon? I guess the difficulty of the mission is too high. If he could not complete it, he would have given up. Heh, for a death mission of this level, other than Senior Yi Zhanling, who else could complete it? Tianyong must have completed it. Shut up. At this time, a slightly angry voice was heard from the door. A handsome young man glanced at the crowd coldly. Are you deaf? Tianyong said to submit the mission, not to give up the mission. Hearing this, the crowd was shocked. At this time, Tianyong took out Lu Jin's head from his space bag with a look of disgust. All of them were astounded when they saw the head because they couldn't be any more familiar with the face on it. In the entire Blizzard state, other than the bloody hand Lu Jin, who else could have such a ferocious face? You really completed it? Looking at Lu Jin's head, the disciple in charge of the handover asked in a trembling voice. Hearing this, Tianyong frowned. The head is already here, what are you still doubting? Yes. Taking the head, the disciple hurriedly dealt with it. Then he took out 2,000 spiritual stones from his space bag and gave it to Tianyong. Here are 2,000 spiritual stones. Please keep it well, Senior Tianyong. Hearing this, Tianyong nodded. At this time, the young man who reprimanded the disciples suddenly walked over and patted Tianyong's shoulder. Gu Xiao. Tianyong turned around and saw Gu Xiao, whom he met a few times during the inner disciple assessment. You are Senior Tianyong. Bad news. Gu Xiao lowered his voice and said to Tianyong, I don't know what price that Xiao Hao paid to get another inner court disciple to provoke you in the few days you were gone. Seeing that you weren't around, that inner disciple wanted to tear down your courtyard, but he was stopped by Senior Ling Yuhan. Right now, Senior Sister Ling Yuhan is sparring with that inner court disciple in the martial arts arena. Senior Ling Yuhan is only at the peak of the 9th level of the body refinement realm. How can she beat that clear chi realm level 3? Senior Tianyong, quickly go and help her, Gu Xiao said anxiously. Hearing this, Tianyong's eyes turned cold. Chapter 100. Where is Yuhan now? Has it started? Tianyong asked Gu Xiao as he walked. His expression was cold, and his eyes seemed to be able to freeze everything. Gu Xiao could not help but shudder. He then said, When I heard the news and left, I was already prepared. It might have already started. This Xiao Hao is really something. After being defeated by me once, he still dares to provoke me again. Hearing this, Tianyong snorted coldly, and a terrifying murderous intent exploded from his body. Although they had not known each other for long, Ling Yuhan was already the closest person to Tianyong after his rebirth. At this moment, someone actually dared to hurt his disciple? That was simply courting death. What about the person Xiao Hao found? How strong is he? Tianyong said coldly. His words seemed to come from the depths of hell. Gu Xiao's voice trembled. That person is ranked 9th on the inner court stone wall. He's 4 ranks higher than you. His name is Yang Xiao. He's the young master of the Yang family, one of the 8 great families of the Blizzard State. Yang family. Tianyong's eyes narrowed. A few days ago, he had interacted with the second young master of the Yang family. It seemed that the second young master of the Yang family, Yang Kun, was not convinced after being taught a lesson by him, so he came to find his big brother. Xiao Hao was not that important. However, this did not mean that Tianyong would let Xiao Hao off so easily. Whoever dared to hurt his disciple and provoke him, regardless of whether it was the Yang family, the Xiao family, or any other family, they would all pay the price. Let's go. Tianyong shouted coldly and used the dragon subduing step. In an instant, his speed reached a terrifying level. Gu Xiao was shocked. He immediately circulated his true yuan and followed. At this moment, in the battle arena, following the collision, Ling Yuhan could not help but take a few steps back. She spat out a mouthful of blood, and her face was much paler. However, the hand holding the jade sea sword was still tightly. She stared at Yang Xiao. When my master returns, all of you will have to bear the consequences. If your master? Hearing this, the young man with a dignified appearance, who was ranked 9th in the inner sect, Yang Xiao, sneered, That guy is just a coward. The courtyard is about to be torn down, but he's still outside. He probably heard news and didn't dare to come back. I see that you're not bad looking, and your cultivation talent is not bad either. Why are you still following that trash Tianyang? Why don't you come to my Yang family and be my maid? Compared to Tianyang, it's much better. You shut up. Facing Yang Zhao's lewd smile, Ling Yuhan wiped the corner of her mouth and coldly said, "You only dare to come to my master's house and act presumptuously while my master was out on a mission. What right do you have to talk about my master?" The true essence in Ling Yuhan's body surged, and the blue sea sword in her hand gradually flickered. Hearing that, the people next to him sighed. Indeed, if Tianyang hadn't left, Xiao Hao wouldn't have dared to provoke them. Furthermore, Yang Xiao was ranked 9th in the intersect and was at the 3rd level of the Radiant Qi realm. Dealing with someone at the peak of the 9th level of the body refinement realm was truly shameless. However, these were only the thoughts of the crowd. They didn't have the guts to say it out loud. After all, Yang Xiao's temper was much more domineering than Qin Shan's. If they offended Yang Xiao, they who were only at the 1st or 2nd level of the Radiant Qi realm would definitely be the target of his vengeance. No intersect disciple would be willing to face the vengeance of the ranked 9th in the intersect. Your master Tianyang is nothing but trash. Even if he comes back now, I'm not afraid of him. Thinking of this, Yang Xiao couldn't help but snicker in his heart. Originally, his younger brother had asked him to teach Tianyang a lesson. Who would have thought that Xiao Hao would actually give him something in return? In Yang Zhao's opinion, Tianyang was just a piece of trash who was lucky enough to defeat Qin Shan. Just by teaching a piece of trash a lesson, he was able to receive Xiao Hao's reward, and it was something that he had always wanted. It would be a waste if Yang Xiao didn't do this business. However, Ling Yuhan's words made Yang Xiao extremely unhappy. Hearing this, Yang Xiao's expression became much colder. True Yuan surged in his hands. Since you're so stubborn, then don't blame me for being ruthless. I'd like to see how you're not afraid of the law. At this moment, a cold shout came from his side. Everyone hurriedly turned their heads to take a look and saw Tianyang standing next to the panting Gu Xiao at the arena's entrance with a cold expression. He's here. Tianyang actually came back at this crucial moment. Tianyang. Yang Zhao's pupils constricted as he stared at Tianyang. From what he could sense, Tianyang's aura was actually extremely powerful. Didn't the rumors say that he was only at the 1st level of the Radiant Qi realm? Why do I feel that he's not inferior to the 8th or 7th in the intersect? Yang Xiao roared in his heart. He didn't know that Tianyang had opened up an ultimate sea of qi that was 100 feet wide. At first glance, the aura that was revealed was indeed much more terrifying than his original cultivation. However, no matter how powerful this kid is, he only defeated Qin Shan by luck. I'm much stronger than Qin Shan. Even if Tianyang's cultivation is strong, so what? Yang Xiao gritted his teeth and forced himself to calm down as he snorted. Tianyang, I thought that you would stay outside and be a coward for the rest of your life. I didn't expect you to come back now. However, it's good that you're back. Since you dare to go against my brother in Yin City, then you should be prepared to be humiliated by me in the Soaring Cloud sect. Yang Xiao snorted coldly. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression was still cold. He strode forward and with just a few steps, he passed Yang Xiao and carried Ling Yuhan down the arena. Yuhan, are you all right? Tianyang's cold expression softened as he asked. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan shook her head. Just as she was about to open her mouth to say something, Tianyang directly stuffed a pill into her mouth. This is a recovery pill. It's just enough for you. Rest well and heal your injuries. Now, let me take revenge for you, Tianyang said coldly. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan's heart warmed. She retreated, sat down cross-legged, and began to refine the pill. At this moment, Tianyang turned his head. A dazzling light shot out from his eyes and shot directly at Yang Xiao. Yang Xiao, right? Tianyang's face was filled with coldness. He took a step forward and arrived on the arena. You dared to behave atrociously in my house when I wasn't around. You even injured my disciple. You're really something. Not knowing why, the coldness in Tianyang's voice had lessened. However, to Yang Xiao, it was even more chilling than before. Tianyang's eyes seemed to have a strange magical power. It was as if it wanted to devour his soul. If that's the case, then take my sword, Tianyang said coldly. He was at the peak of level 1 Bright Chi realm. His true energy was infinitely close to that of level 2 Bright Chi realm. In the next moment, it condensed on the flaming wind sword. Seeing this, Yang Zhao's face changed. He broke free from Tianyang's gaze. Martial spirit, insolent tiger, Yang Xiao roared. Accompanied by the sound of tiger's roar, Yang Zhao's body suddenly became much stronger. The true energy in his body seemed to have been activated. Seeing this, the crowd was stunned. The battle had not even started and Yang Xiao had already used his martial spirit. Middle grade, mystic martial technique, tiger's roar. Yang Xiao was like a madman. The true energy of level 3 Bright Chi realm was rapidly condensing in his hands. Then, he charged directly at Tianyang. Stubborn resistance. Tianyang shook his head. The true energy on the flaming wind sword was also condensed to the extreme. Flowing cloud sword technique, flowing cloud state. With a slash of his sword, the dazzling sword light attracted everyone's attention. Then, the tiger's roar fist was directly shattered. Even Yang Xiao himself was severely injured by this slash. Intersect, 9th disciple Yang Xiao defeated. Chapter 101. Seeing that Yang Xiao could not even withstand a single blow from Tianyang, the crowd fell silent. However, no one was surprised. On the contrary, some of them were even secretly laughing. Tianyang's strength was known to all who had seen the battle. In the end, when he was besieged by 7 first and second stage Bright Chi realm cultivators, Tianyang was still able to kill them all with a single blow. How could Yang Xiao challenge him? In their opinion, Tianyang's single blow did not kill Yang Xiao because Tianyang was being merciful. After all, it was impossible to kill a fellow disciple so easily. This Yang Xiao is also an idiot. How strong is Qinshan? Just like him, he is at the 3rd stage of the Bright Chi realm. Why was Yang Xiao beaten up so badly by Tianyang? A person looked at Yang Xiao, who was knocked unconscious by Tianyang's sword, and mocked. Who told him to be so arrogant when Tianyang wasn't around? Now that Tianyang is back, he's dead. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression did not change. Killing an ordinary 3rd stage Bright Chi realm cultivator was nothing to Tianyang. After all, he was able to kill Lu Jin, who was at the 5th stage of the Bright Chi realm and had a lot of experience in killing. He also had the Dark High level Evil Blood Palm. How could he be afraid of a puny Yang Xiao? Tianyang, you actually injured the young master of the Yang clan. The Yang clan will not let you off. At this moment, Xiao Hao, who had brought Yang Xiao over, looked at Tianyang's expressionless face with a deathly pale complexion as he put on a strong front. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and turned to look at Xiao Hao. He spat out a sentence. Do you also want to fight me? Hearing this, Xiao Hao, who had wanted to continue speaking, immediately cowered. After all, he was only at the 9th stage of the body, refining realm. Tianyang was someone who could kill Yang Xiao in a second. If he fought with Tianyang, perhaps Tianyang could kill him with a single blow. Moreover, if the Yang clan wants to kill me, they will have to kill the Tian clan first. Do you really think that the Yang clan is the leader of the 8 great clans in Blizzard State? Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, Xiao Hao's expression changed. That's right. Tianyang was not only a talented genius, but he had another identity. He was the son of the Tian clan's patriarch. With this background, let alone seriously injuring Yang Xiao, even if Tianyang crippled him, the Yang family would not dare to say anything. After all, although the head of the 8 major families isn't the Tian family, the Tian family is only second to the 1st and 2nd of the 8 major families, ranking 3rd. The Yang clan and Xiao clan, the Tian clan, and the Tian clan, the Tian clan's Tians. Seeing Xiao Hao's cowardly expression, Tianyang curled his lips and put away the sky cloud sword. After devouring so much martial spirit energy, the sky cloud sword showed no signs of leveling up. The amount of martial spirit energy consumed was too horrifying. However, the sky cloud sword could not only level up by devouring, But even if it was only at the upper grade of the yellow rank, it could still have the power of a half step into the profound rank. Comparing this, it was not unacceptable that it needed to devour so much to level up. Thinking of this, Tianyang put away the flaming wind sword and was about to get off the stage. At this moment, a rough voice came from outside. I was wondering why Yang Xiao was lying on the ground like a dead dog. So it was you, Tianyang, who attacked. A bold and rough voice came. Tianyang's footsteps paused for a moment. He did not seem to know this person. However, when the people around heard this voice, their expressions changed. This person was the inner disciple ranked fourth on the stone wall, Yang Xiong. Of course, this Yang Xiong was not a member of the Yang clan. They just happened to have the same surname. On the contrary, the relationship between Yang Xiong and Yang Xiao was not good. At the very least, after seeing that Yang Xiao was seriously injured, Yang Xiong's words were not angry at all. Instead, it was gloating. Yang Xiao relied on the power of the Yang clan to bully the Lingyun sect's inner disciples. As someone with the same surname as Yang Xiao, Yang Xiong naturally had his fair share of troubles. However, half a year ago, after Yang Xiong beat up Yang Xiao in front of everyone understood that Yang Xiong and Yang Xiao were not the same kind of people. You are. Tianyang looked at Yang Xiong. He searched his memories, but did not remember this person. However, at this moment, Ling Yuhan walked over and whispered in Tianyang's ear. This is the inner disciple ranked fourth, Yang Xiong. Compared to Yang Xiao and Chen Shan, he is much stronger. He has reached the fourth level of the bright Qi realm. Moreover, Yang Xiong is a battle maniac. Whenever he sees someone stronger than him, he will either beat them up until they feel ashamed or beat them up until they prove that they are stronger than him. Master, your current strength is not inferior to the top 5 of the inner disciples. This Yang Xiong is probably after you. Ling Yuhan said in a low voice. She had stayed in the inner court for a longer period of time than Tianyang, so she knew more about some of the people and matters of the inner court than Tianyang. Hearing this, Tianyang squinted his eyes. Battle maniac? 4th level of the bright Qi realm? Lu Jin was at the 5th level of the bright Qi realm, but he was killed by him. However, that was because Lu Jin did not have a master to teach him. Other than the baleful blood palm and fighting experience, he did not have anything else. Therefore, his battle strength was not very strong, and he was easily killed by Tianyang. However, this Yang Xiong was different. Although he did not know of any powerful family background, with the guidance of the inner disciples of the Soaring Cloud sect, Yang Xiong's strength was definitely not weak. I have long heard of Brother Tianyang's name. I also know that Brother Tianyang's strength is not ordinary. Today I am here for one thing. Yang Xiong laughed, walked in front of Tianyang, and jumped onto the stage. Yang Xiong's rough face had a similarly rough smile, but no one could feel the slightest bit of disgust towards him. Moreover, the Soaring Cloud sect's inner robe that was extremely wide for the Heavenly Sun sect was actually stretched taut by Yang Xiong. It was obvious that Yang Xiong's muscles were extremely strong. Facing such a muscular man, most people would be terrified before the fight even started. Seeing Yang Xiong's face and thinking of his battle maniac reputation, the crowd was shocked. Could it be that Yang Xiong wanted to fight with Tianyang? One was the famous battle maniac Yang Xiong, who was at the 4th level of the Bright Qi realm. The other was the recently risen Tianyang, who once killed 7 people with one sword. He was considered to have the strength to be in the top 5, but his cultivation was only at the 1st level of the Bright Qi realm. If these 2 people fought, it would be much more interesting than Yang Xiao being beaten up. Yang Xiong's strength is unquestionable. However, Tianyang was able to kill 7 people with one sword. I am afraid that it was not because of his own strength. If Tianyang was able to do that, he must have used some kind of trump card. Then, Tianyang's battle is uncertain. A young man muttered. At this time, in the middle of the stage, Yang Xiong grinned. Chapter 102. I challenge you to a duel. Yang Xiong's rough voice rang out. Hearing this, everyone nodded their heads. As expected, Yang Xiong's reputation as a battle maniac was extremely well known even in the inner sect. Normally, even the top 3 disciples would not want to be entangled with Yang Xiong. After all, Yang Xiong's character of continuing to fight if he couldn't beat you, and only stopping when he could beat you is really too annoying. Therefore, the top 3 disciples, except for Yi Zhanling, would avoid Yang Xiong whenever they saw him. They were afraid that if they were not careful, this battle maniac would pester them again. Therefore, Yang Xiong could only look for other people who had the potential to fight with him. However, such people were rarely found. However, Tianyang was one of them. Not interested. Tianyang replied immediately. He was too lazy to even think. Hearing this, Yang Xiong was stunned. Everyone was stunned. Not interested? The person who spoke was Yang Xiong. Although Yang Xiong was not as domineering as Chun Shan and Yang Xiao in the inner sect, he was still the 4th most powerful person in the inner sect. Tianyang actually rejected such a powerful person so straightforwardly. Yuhan, let's go. Your injuries are not light. If you want to break through to the clear chi stage, it will take some time. However, I have refined some pills for you outside. It should be useful. Tianyang said directly, ignoring the stunned Yang Xiong. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan nodded her head with a strange expression. This was Yang Xiong. Tianyang actually ignored him? Hey, seeing this situation, Yang Xiong was anxious. It was not easy to find someone who was not weak. How could he just let him run away like this? Aren't you curious why Chen Shan and the rest would go against you just because you defeated Xiaoping? Yang Xiong said loudly. Hearing this, Tianyang, who was about to take a step, paused and turned around. Tianyang's face was covered with coldness. Fight with me. If you can beat me, I will tell you. Seeing Tianyang's reaction, Yang Xiong grinned and said. At this moment, Tianyang's figure moved. Using the dragon subduing step, Tianyang's speed instantly soared to the extreme. With just a flash, Tianyang arrived in front of Yang Xiong. Tongming fist, Tianyang bellowed. Soon after, his fist, which contained 13 layers of hidden energy, landed on Yang Xiong's body. What? As soon as the 13 layers of hidden strength entered, Yang Xiong didn't even have time to react before it exploded. Yang Xiong's face also paled a lot. However, the cultivation of the 4th level of the Bright Chi realm was not to be trifled with. The true Yuan in his body exploded violently, causing Tianyang to take a step back. At the same time, he had also obtained some breathing space. Good guy, if it wasn't for my strong physical strength, I'm afraid I would have been killed by this punch. Yang Xiong licked his lips and said excitedly. At this moment, Tianyang was too lazy to talk nonsense. Once again, he used the dragon subduing step. His body became illusory, and the flaming wind sword appeared in his hand. The sky cloud sword was attached to it. In the next moment, Tianyang's figure flashed and disappeared from Yang Xiong's sight. What a fast speed! Looking at Tianyang's sudden disappearance, Yang Xiong couldn't believe it. Was this speed really something that a 1st-level Bright Chi realm cultivator could possess? However, no matter how fast you are in front of me, it will be greatly reduced. Low-grade mystic martial spirit, dragon turtle. Yang Xiong laughed loudly. At this moment, Tianyang only felt that the ground under his feet had turned into a swamp. Every step he took, there was a large amount of mud holding him back. His speed was greatly reduced in an instant. It's actually a low-grade mystic martial spirit, and it's the dragon turtle with extremely strong defense. Who would have thought that Yang Xiong, who is only at the 4th level of the Bright Chi realm, would possess such a strong martial spirit? The people next to Yang Xiong said in shock as they saw the dragon turtle's shadow appear behind Yang Xiong's back. Hearing this, Yang Xiong grinned. At this moment, Tianyang's mouth curled into a smile. Dragon turtle? This kind of demonic beast is not bad. Looking at Yang Xiong's appearance, although the dragon turtle martial spirit is only at the low-grade mystic martial spirit, its power has reached the peak of the low-grade mystic martial spirit. However, this kind of speed restriction may be effective against ordinary movement techniques, but what is Tianyang practicing? Earth-class movement technique, dragon subduing step. Dragon subduing step can subdue dragons, so naturally, it can also subdue the dragon turtle. Dragon subduing step, dragon subduing. Tianyang shouted as the true Yuan in his body rapidly circulated. In the next moment, the restriction of the dragon turtle's power was directly shattered. Seeing this, Yang Xiong's face changed. You actually broke my dragon turtle swamp. No wonder you can beat up Yang Xiao. This kind of strength is enough to be in the top 5. However, my dragon tortoise martial soul isn't just limited to this. Earthquake Rupture. And my middle-grade Mystic Fist technique, Earthquake Fist. Yang Xiong roared. At the 4th level of the Bright Qi realm, his 4 Qi seas began to circulate rapidly. Majestic and powerful true yuan continuously flowed out. Seeing this, the people next to him could not help but be shocked. Senior brother Yang Xiong actually used Earthquake Rupture, and he even used a middle-grade Mystic Fist technique. These two techniques complement each other. Even if the third senior brother encountered these two techniques, I'm afraid he could only temporarily avoid them. Tianyang is now in the middle of the battle stage. Where's there a place for him to hide? Seeing this, Ling Yuhan's face also changed. Yang Xiong's killing technique was different from Chun Shan and Yang Zhao's. For Yang Xiong to be able to become the 4th inner disciple, his reputation was not undeserved. With this Earthquake Rupture and Earthquake Fist, there were only a few people in the entire Soaring Cloud sect who could withstand this attack. However, Master is invincible. Although Yang Xiong's fist is strong, it can't do anything to Master. Ling Yuhan's eyes flashed with a trace of confidence as she smiled. In her opinion, Tianyang, who taught her the Ice Emperor's heavenly sword technique and had unfathomable strength, was an invincible god of war. Not bad. Ingeniously combining the power of the martial spirit with your fist technique. This Earthquake Rupture and Earthquake Fist compatibility is not bad. This technique is indeed qualified for me to use the Flowing Cloud realm. Tianyang chuckled. Then, on the Flaming Wind sword, a light burst out. Flowing Cloud sword technique, sword emerging from the flowing cloud. Like the flowing cloud, ethereal and difficult to find, like a thundercloud, unparalleled and terrifying. This was Tianyang's Flowing Cloud realm after combining his own understanding. In the next moment, a fist and a sword, the two killing techniques collided together. Boom! A deafening explosion erupted from the epicenter of the collision between the two of them. Layers upon layers of shockwaves caused the faces of the spectators to change. Just how intense was this collision? At this moment, Tianyang's 100 feet Qi Si moved slightly. Then, an even more terrifying power burst out. What? Yang Xiong's pupils shrank. Just as he was about to mobilize his Qi to counterattack, this Flowing Cloud realm had already successfully shattered his fist. Moreover, it was already in front of him. Looking at the Flaming Wind sword's tip that was only an inch away from his forehead, Yang Xiong had no doubt that if Tianyang's attack was just a little bit more ruthless, he would definitely have died. You won. Taking a step back, Yang Xiong let out a long sigh of relief and said. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled slightly. He put the Flaming Wind sword back into the scabbard and threw it back on his back. At this moment, a light flashed in Yang Xiong's eyes. He said what Tianyang wanted to know. Since you won, then I won't say anything more. There is only one reason why Qin Shan tried so hard to deal with you. Chapter 103. The Hidden Dragon Ancient Land is about to open. Yang Xiong said solemnly as he looked at Tianyang's face. Tianyang was stunned when he heard that. He did not know what the Hidden Dragon Ancient Land was. However, everyone was shocked when they heard those words. Senior Yang Xiong, are you saying that the Hidden Dragon Ancient Land, which only opens once every 10 years, is about to open? Every time it opens, countless treasures will appear? Among the audience, the one with the strongest cultivation base, the 3rd level of the Bright Qi realm, who is also ranked 12th on the stone wall, asked with a trembling voice. Everyone around him also revealed a glimmer of hope. Hearing this, Yang Xiong was slightly startled, and then said, That's right. That's right. However, due to the pressure from the other sects, our Soaring Cloud sect's quota has been reduced from the original 50 to 30. Unless there's an accident, only the top 30 on the stone wall are qualified to enter the Hidden Dragon Ancient Land. Hearing this, Many people revealed a trace of despair. Although their strength was not weak, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens for them to rush into the top 30. Some of them even looked resentful. Despicable other sects. Originally, the Soaring Cloud sect wanted to develop on our own, but they wanted to interfere. 20 quotas, not just like that. The Hidden Dragon Ancient Land is an ancient land that can produce many geniuses. Gone just like that. A young man said angrily. Hearing this, Yang Xiong smiled bitterly. Indeed, it's immoral for the other sects to do this. However, in the Sky Continent, strength is everything. If we can't defeat them, what can we do? The only thing we can do is to defeat the other sects before the next opening of the Hidden Dragon Ancient Land. That's the only way we can wash away our shame, said Yang Xiong angrily. The others regained their composure when they heard that. At that moment, Tianyang patted Yang Xiong's shoulder with a blank face. Excuse me, what is the Hidden Dragon Ancient Land? As soon as he finished speaking, Tianyang felt as if the air around him had solidified. You don't know? After Yang Xiong's explanation, Tianyang finally understood what the Hidden Dragon Ancient Land was. In fact, Tianyang had seen many ancient mystery lands in his previous life. However, there were big and small ancient mystery lands. If he was not wrong, this dragon-lurking ancient land was one of the smaller ones. Otherwise, a 9th-rank sect like the Cloud-Soaring sect would absolutely not have the possibility to interfere. So that's how it is. That is to say, the heaven and earth spiritual chi and cultivation resources in the Hidden Dragon Ancient Ground are extremely rich. If a cultivator were to enter, his strength would increase tremendously in a short period of time. Tianyang nodded and said. Hearing this, Yang Xiong nodded in agreement. Soon after, Yang Xiong's face became much more serious, and a trace of gloom flashed between his brows. What I'm going to tell you next is the few sects that made our Soaring Cloud sect lose 20 spots for nothing. That's almost half of our total number. Originally, our Soaring Cloud sect was considered the overlord of the Arctic Nation. Even the Arctic Nation's royal family was somewhat afraid of the Soaring Cloud sect. However, there are many sects in the surrounding countries that are close to the Hidden Dragon Ancient Ground. The small sects are not even 9th-rank sects, so we can ignore them. However, the big sects are completely different. Yang Xiong said in a deep voice, our Soaring Cloud sect's opponents are also our archenemies. There are 4 of them, namely the Earth and Way sect, the Wolf Tiger sect, the Snow Mountain sect, and the Blood Soul sect. The strongest is the Blood Soul sect. Most of their martial arts are evil martial skills. It is said that the evil blood palm used by the Bloody Hand Lu Jin that you killed was a martial skill of the Blood Soul sect. Yang Xiong said. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. The Soaring Cloud sect actually had 4 opponents. However, we're only ordinary inner disciples now, so we don't have to think too much. In the Hidden Dragon Ancient Ground, we will not encounter any elders or deacons. Our opponents in the Hidden Dragon Ancient Ground are the younger generation of these 4 sections. Unfortunately, if it wasn't for senior brother Yi Zhanling, we wouldn't even have 30 spots. Yang Xiong sighed. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded his head. If you are weak, you'll be bullied. This was the rule of the entire continent. The Soaring Cloud sect's strength might not be inferior to the Blood Soul sect. However, when 1 or 2 of the 4 archenemy sects joined forces, the Soaring Cloud sect would not be able to contend against them. Moreover, these 4 sects were joining forces to deal with the Soaring Cloud sect. Yang Xiong, you previously said that you want us to beat the other sects before the next Hidden Dragon Ancient Ground opens. Then, why don't we kill all of their young geniuses in the Hidden Dragon Ancient Ground? A dangerous glint flashed in Tianyang's eyes as a faint smile hung on his face, and he chuckled. Hearing this, Yang Xiong was stunned. He lifted his head and wanted to say something. However, he was attracted by the look in Tianyang's eyes. A drop of cold sweat seeped out from his forehead and slowly flowed down. Your suggestion might work. Looking into Tianyang's eyes, Yang Xiong unknowingly said something that he did not want to say. After knowing about the Hidden Dragon Ancient Ground, Tianyang did not stay at the battle arena any longer. He directly brought Ling Yuhan back to his residence. The Hidden Dragon Ancient Ground will only open in a month. In this month, I can at least break through to level 2 of the Bright Chi realm. Walking through the door, Tianyang thought to himself, however, level 2 of the Bright Chi realm will not be of much help to me. However, if Yuhan breaks through to the Bright Chi realm, with the strength of the Ice Emperor's Heaven Sword technique, Yuhan will at least have the ability to enter the top 20 of the Inner Disciples. Tianyang analyzed in his heart. Then, he turned around and said to Ling Yuhan, "Yuhan, how are your injuries now?" Ling Yuhan, who was walking behind Tianyang with her head lowered, was suddenly asked by Tianyang. Her face flushed red before she answered honestly. "It's almost done. My Jade Sea Sword is not to be trifled with. Although Yang Xiao is strong, he only suffered superficial wounds. Master's Wound Recovery Pill is very effective. I'll be healed in a short while. Superficial wounds are good. Then, do you think you can break through to the Bright Chi realm now?" Tianyang's lips curled into a smile as he said this. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan was stunned. Then, her eyes were filled with surprise. "Master, you mean I can break through to the Bright Chi realm now? Not only do you have to break through to the Bright Chi realm, but you also have to open up a sea of Chi that is at least 800 feet wide." Tianyang smiled. Then, he opened his space bag and an elixir appeared in his hand. This is an elixir that assists in opening up the sea of Chi. It took me a lot of effort to refine this Xian Chi elixir. With the help of the Xian Chi elixir, you can't let down the Ice Emperor's Heaven Sword technique. Tianyang smiled as he stuffed the Xian Chi elixir into Ling Yuhan's hand. Ling Yuhan's entire body shook as well, and a resolute glint flashed across his eyes. Whether it's Master or Senior Ice Emperor, I won't let them down. Chapter 104. Following the activation of the Ice Emperor's Heaven Sword technique, a mysterious power began to condense in Ling Yuhan's body. Is this the feeling of opening up the sea of Chi? It feels amazing. Sensing the changes in her body, Ling Yuhan exclaimed in surprise. Although her talent was not weak, it was her first time opening up the sea of Chi. After all, Tianyang was probably the only person in history who was able to travel through time and space for 10,000 years and be reborn 10,000 years later. This is the foundation of the Sea of Chi. Yes, it's time to expand it to the limit. Seeing the tiny vortex that appeared in her dantian like a seed, Ling Yuhan immediately understood and circulated the vital essence in her body rapidly. As the vital essence surged into the Sea of Chi, the Sea of Chi, which was only a few inches wide, began to expand rapidly. 10 feet, 20 feet. In just a few breaths, it had sprinted to 20 feet. So fast, even Ling Yuhan herself was shocked by the speed of her own opening. However, she still calmed her mind and continued sprinting. Yuhan's talent is not weak, and with the help of the Ice Emperor's Heaven Sword technique, even if she can't reach 89 feet like the Ice Emperor after opening up the Sea of Chi this time. However, opening up an 80-foot Sea of Chi shouldn't be a problem. A Sea of Chi of this level can completely crush almost everyone in the Lingyun sect. Tianyang sat cross-legged in the room next door and sensed the fluctuations coming from next door as he spoke softly. In just a minute, she has already opened up to 50 feet. This momentum is not bad. However, after 50 feet, every foot is a threshold. If she wants to cross over and continue expanding, it will be much more difficult than sprinting to 50 feet previously. Tianyang said softly, "This can only depend on herself. Even I can't help." After that, Tianyang closed his eyes and carefully sensed. Although he was unable to directly take action, using the terrifying spiritual strength at the peak of the heavenly completion stage, it wasn't impossible for him to warn Ling Yuhan when she was about to make a mistake. In addition, Tianyang had personally refined the Xian Chi pill to assist her. When Tianyang said that Ling Yuhan could open up a sea of Chi of 800 feet, it was still a little exaggerated. In reality, it should be around 85 feet. It's so difficult. The first 700 feet weren't that difficult, but after 700 feet, it suddenly became so difficult. Ling Yuhan's face was dripping with sweat. The expansion of the Sea of Qi in her dantian had also slowed down significantly. Every inch he expanded was like an indestructible wall. No matter what he did, he was unable to move forward even a little bit. Fortunately, the Ice Emperor's heavenly sword technique was worthy of being a low-grade, heavenly-level technique. Its power was extremely terrifying. Ling Yuhan had practiced it for so long, and with her innate talent, she had already practiced the introductory chapter to the point of perfection. However, even so, Ling Yuhan was finally unable to hold on after expanding to 78 feet. No matter what, it was difficult to continue advancing. Now take the Xianqi pill immediately. At this moment, Tianyang's voice sounded in Ling Yuhan's mind. His voice was solemn. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan, who was about to give up, suddenly shivered. The next moment, Ling Yuhan's eyes widened. This is spiritual sound transmission. Master's spiritual strength is actually so powerful. In her current situation, it was impossible for ordinary true essence sound transmissions to transmit information to her. In this situation, besides a soul sound transmission, it was impossible for her to hear anything else. Xianqi pill. Yes, Master personally refined the Xianqi pill. After receiving Tianyang's reminder, Ling Yuhan immediately came to his senses and threw the profound qi pill that he had been holding in his hand into his mouth. Just as the Xianqi pill entered her mouth, it immediately turned into a pool of gentle medicinal liquid. Subsequently, it fell into Ling Yuhan's dantian. Upon contact with the true essence, it immediately turned into a ball of Xian Huang qi current and rapidly spiraled in Ling Yuhan's qi sea. After the 78 feet qi sea came into contact with this Xian Huang qi current, it seemed to have received some great nourishment and expanded once again. 80 feet, 81 feet, 82 feet. Now, even if it was Ling Yuhan's first time opening up her qi sea and had no experience, she should know that now she was about to make the final push. Her true essence, which was gradually approaching the first level of the bright qi realm, circulated rapidly, and Ling Yuhan's qi sea also began its final expansion. 83 feet, 84 feet. Under the effect of the Xianqi pill, the qi sea had been expanding at a slow but steady rate. After 15 minutes, Ling Yuhan's qi sea had finally absorbed all the Xian Huang qi current and stopped at 89 feet. Yes, even the Ice Emperor of the past, who was at the heavenly ascension state and was an emperor, only opened up an 89 feet qi sea. An 89 feet qi sea, unless you meet a rare genius that only appears once in 10,000 years, no one in the entire continent can surpass it. Sensing the size of Ling Yuhan's qi sea, Tianyang could not help but exclaim in admiration. After all, the appearance of his 1,000 feet qi sea was a complete accident. If he, the Tianji Sword Emperor, had not been reborn, it would have been an ordinary 81 feet qi sea. At this level, although he was still considered a top genius in the continent, he was still slightly weaker than super geniuses like the Ice Emperor and the Yuan Emperor. However, Ling Yuhan was only opening up her qi sea for the first time, and she was already able to reach such a level. This level of talent was considered rare in the world. 89 feet. At this moment, Ling Yuhan was also staring blankly at the size of her qi sea. She had never thought that her qi sea could actually reach such a size. One must know that even the number 1 inner disciple of the Soaring Cloud sect, Yi Zhanling, had only opened up a qi sea of 600 feet, maybe even a little more. However, in the wonderful world of martial arts in the Heaven Continent, although a qi sea of 600 feet was not ordinary, it was still just an ordinary genius. And she, Ling Yuhan, had surpassed Yi Zhanling by more than 20 feet. But why do I feel that my limit is not yet like this? Suddenly, an indescribable radiance flashed through Ling Yuhan's eyes. The medicinal effects of the profound qi pill had already been exhausted, and the effects of the introductory chapter of the Ice Emperor's heavenly sword technique had also come to an end. However, Ling Yuhan had a feeling that she still had something that she had not displayed yet. Martial spirit. I spiritual fox out. Ling Yuhan's eyes suddenly flashed with a ray of light, and in the next moment, the upper-grade ice spiritual fox martial spirit exploded. The surrounding temperature seemed to have dropped by 10 degrees in an instant. Even Tianyang, who was next door, could not help but change his expression at this moment. As for the ice spiritual fox's shadow, it also exploded with a terrifying light, and the shackles on Ling Yuhan's bloodline were also opened for a moment. In this moment, the size of Ling Yuhan's Qi had also completed a leap from 89 feet to 90 feet. However, in the next room, the moment Tianyang felt this fluctuation, his calm face suddenly revealed an astonished expression. His eyes widened, and in Tianyang's eyes, there was complete astonishment. This fluctuation. In the next moment, from Tianyang's mouth, words were spat out. His words were filled with endless shock.